Chapter 112. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Little Jing Kong had a serious expression on his face on the ox cart on the way back. He met a very fierce benefactor today, and she said a lot of things that he didn't understand. It didn't seem to be anything good. But that was not the point. He seemed to be protected by Brother Gu Yan today. He was much smarter than Gu Yan. He skipped grades and got first place every time. Brother Gu Yan was like a baby. But when Brother Gu Yan squatted down to wipe his little hands and pulled him to the private school, he had the illusion that he was the baby. Little Jing Kong fell into deep thought. For the first time, he was confused about his position with Gu Yan. On the other side, Royal Princeton and Miss Shuang returned to the villa. Miss Shuang was exhausted and fell asleep immediately. Royal Princeton ordered her personal maid, "Don't let anyone disturb her rest. Don't see anyone who comes." The maid hesitated. "What if Miss Gu?" Royal Princeton's eyes were cold. "I won't see her." "Yes." The maid hurriedly responded. Royal Princeton returned to his room. Not long after, the black-robed man flashed in and saluted him with cupped hands. "Your Highness." Royal Princeton poured himself a cup of tea and said lightly, "Did you find anything?" The man in black shook his head. "I've secretly checked all the inns and clinics in town. I didn't find any trace of the Empress Dowager." Royal Princeton murmured, "Maybe she didn't go to the clinic or the doctors in town. She didn't stay in the inn either." The man in black was puzzled. "Then where did the Empress Dowager go? Did she hide in a commoner's house?" Royal Princeton was silent. The man in black didn't care. "Royal Prince, that's impossible. Have you forgotten that the Empress Dowager has leprosy?" In the early stages of leprosy, there were only some small red spots on the body and face, which looked like frostbite or allergies. But as the disease progressed, the symptoms of leprosy would become more and more obvious, and eventually become completely different from normal people. It was impossible for a leper to remain hidden, unless she had gone into the mountains and lived alone. But that was even more impossible. The Empress Dowager had lived like a princess all her life. She didn't even know how to cook. If she really stayed in the old forest, she would starve to death sooner or later, even if she didn't die of illness or get bitten to death by wild beasts. Royal Princeton said thoughtfully, "You're right, but if she didn't hide, where did she go? She has leprosy and causes a commotion wherever she goes." The man in black said, "Are you really not considering the possibility of the Empress Dowager's death?" Royal Princeton said, "I've said it before. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse." The man in black was at his wit's end. "Perhaps someone took her in and cured her." The man in black said, "Leprosy is incurable. Even the most skilled doctor in the state of Chun could only delay the symptoms of leprosy. The earlier they interfered, the better the effect, but a complete cure was unheard of." Royal Princeton obviously knew how unreasonable his guess was, but compared to being cured, he didn't want to believe that the Empress Dowager had died alone in a corner. He ordered, "Go and investigate the old woman who came to Qingchuan town last winter. Don't leave out the villages under her rule." "Yes." The man in black accepted the order and went to investigate. His efficiency was much higher than Huang Zhong's group. In a few days he found 2 clues. One was in Daniu village, the other was in Qingchuan village. The 2 villages were in the north and south of the town. This one from Daniu village was stranded there last winter. When the villagers found her, she was curled up in an abandoned cowshed. The villagers pitied her, so they let her live in the cowshed. Occasionally, someone would send her some food, so she wouldn't starve to death. Royal Princeton asked, "What about the other one?" The man in black continued, "The one in Qingchuan village is a distant relative of a scholar in our village. Something happened to her family and she had no one to rely on, so she came to seek shelter from him." From the clues, the old woman in Daniu village was more likely to be the person they were looking for. However, for some reason, Royal Princeton chose Qingchuan village. There was no reason. It was just his intuition. In order not to alert the enemy, Royal Princeton decided to go there personally. The man in black and his men were waiting in the town. Royal Prince and rode his horse to the village. The summer days were long and the evening sky was still bright. Royal Prince tied his horse to the old locust tree at the entrance of the village and walked to the house according to the map drawn by the man in black. Little Jing Kong was feeding the chickens in the backyard. He was worried that the chickens would run out, so he closed the door. Royal Prince knocked on the door. Little Jing Kong opened the door. That day, before Gu Jiao took action, Little Jing Kong was taken into the private school by Gu Yan. Therefore, he didn't know what happened later and didn't see Royal Princeton. However, Royal Princeton looked back after getting into the carriage. He saw Gu Jiao holding Little Jing Kong's hand and walking out of the private school. There was a young man who looked like Marquis Gu beside them. He must be Gu Yan, who the imperial doctor said would not live past 15. It was strange. Why was this little guy here? Is this your home? Royal Princeton asked. Little Jing Kong didn't open the door completely. He only opened it a little and a round head popped out. Of course it's my home. Who are you? What are you doing here? Royal Princeton said gently. I'm passing by and want to ask for a bowl of water. Then wait. Little Jing Kong didn't invite him in but closed the door. After a while he brought him a bowl of water. Here. This little guy was very cautious. Royal Princeton took the bowl and drank all the water in one gulp. Then he returned the empty bowl to him. Are you alone at home? Little Jing Kong immediately became alert and closed the door a little. Are you a trafficker? Why are you asking about this? Royal Princeton said without batting an eyelid. Ah no. I just wanted to thank your lady for drinking your water. Little Jing Kong said seriously. I was the one who brought the water to you. You just have to thank me. Royal Princeton had never seen such an unconventional child. He was stunned and said, thank you very much. By the way, can I ask you how to get to Dainyu Village? Little Jing Kong would know if it was Apricot Blossom Village or Yonglu Village. However, Dainyu Village was beyond his knowledge. Little Jing Kong was stunned. Royal Princeton smiled. Can you help me ask your family's lord? My lord is very busy. You can ask elsewhere. Go east. The 7th family's surname is Luo. Second Uncle Luo is an ox cart driver. He knows all the villages. Little Jing Kong closed the door decisively after showing him the way. He didn't forget to bolt the door. Jiao Jiao had said that strangers shouldn't be allowed in when there were no adults in the house. He was a child and his great-aunt was an old woman. They were not adults. In any case, Royal Princeton was someone who had been abroad before and had rich experience. Unexpectedly, he was rejected by a child. However, he didn't give up so easily. If the front door didn't work, he would go through the back door. He had to see that old lady today. Royal Princeton went to the back door. The back door of the kitchen was also closed but not locked. Royal Princeton paused and gently pushed the door open. Then he walked in. His footsteps were very light and almost didn't make any sound. Just as he took 2 or 3 steps, a figure suddenly jumped out from behind the door and hit him on the head with a rolling pin. With a bang, Royal Princeton fainted. The old lady threw the rolling pin back on the chopping board and looked down at the unconscious Royal Princeton. She snorted, "Sneaky. I can tell you're not a good person." The old lady heard the conversation between Royal Princeton and Little Jing Kong. He kept asking if the Lord was in the house. After being rejected, he sneaked in through the back door. Thief, he was a real thief. It wasn't strange that the old lady was so suspicious. After the family's life was not so difficult, they were indeed targeted by thieves. However, the thieves were all at night. At night, Gu Jiao and Gu Yan's secret guards were there. They could get rid of the thieves easily. However, she didn't expect the thieves to be so bold. They dared to steal things in broad daylight. The old lady looked at the handsome side profile and clicked her tongue. Even if you rely on your face to make a living, it's still better than being a thief. But why do I feel that this boy looks a little familiar? Have I seen him somewhere before? The old lady hit him hard. When Gu Jiao, Gu Shaoshan, and Gu Yan returned from cutting firewood in the mountains, he was still unconscious on the floor of the kitchen. Gu Jiao and Gu Shaoshan put down the 2 bundles of firewood on their backs. Gu Yan also put down the half basket of dried branches and leaves that he had packed. Jiao Jiao, there was a thief in the house. Great-aunt is so powerful. She knocked the thief out. Little Jing Kong turned into a little loudspeaker in a second and told them what happened. Gu Jiao quickly recognized that he wasn't a thief. He was the young man in embroidered clothes that she saw outside the private school a few days ago. He was the royal prince and that Gu Jiao mentioned. Gu Jiao didn't have a good impression of him. He didn't shield his biological sister, and even apologized to Marquis Gu and her. He was so understanding at such a young age. She didn't know if he was too fair and kind or if he wasn't simple at all. No matter what, he couldn't get into trouble in their house. Gu Jiao grabbed him with both hands and brought him to Gu Xiaoshuan's room. The old lady didn't show any mercy. There was a big bump on his head, and he even bled a little. Gu Jiao applied medicine for him and wrapped him in gauze. After that, Gu Jiao took out silver needles and pricked his acupuncture points a few times. Royal Prince An slowly opened his eyes. Royal Prince An's facial features weren't particularly exquisite, but he had an aura that could make people sink into him. His eyes were beautiful, but his gaze didn't seem right. Gu Jiao looked at him strangely. She took out her hand and waved it in front of his eyes. He didn't react. What was going on? Was he blind? At this time, the sky was dark and there was only a weak oil lamp in the room. Gu Jiao made the wick brighter, but he still couldn't see. However, he didn't panic and didn't show any abnormality. He calmly closed his eyes and said, "My eyes hurt." The first thing he said when he woke up wasn't to ask where he was or who she was, but to cover up the fact that he couldn't see. What a strange person. Since he said so, Gu Jiao naturally wouldn't expose him. After all, no one could guarantee that there wouldn't be any consequences after exposing him. The more you know, the faster you'll die. Then don't open your eyes. I'll find some herbs for you, Gu Jiao said. She randomly took some mint leaves and wrapped them in a cloth to cover his eyes. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong poked his head in the door. Is he awake? It was the little fellow's voice. And Royal Prince began to guess Gu Jiao's identity. If he didn't guess incorrectly, she should be the woman who argued with his younger sister that day. But wasn't she Marquis Ding An's daughter? How could she live in this kind of place? He's awake. Gu Jiao asked, "Are you hungry?" "Unhungry." Little Jing Kong nodded honestly and asked, "Then is there something wrong with him?" Gu Jiao said softly, "He's fine. His eyes are just a bit uncomfortable." Little Jing Kong asked again, "Will he blame Grandaunt?" Gu Jiao looked at an royal prince. "Recently, our home has been burglarized a few times. You came in through the back door, so my Grandaunt thinks you're a thief." "It's my fault," an royal prince said. "He won't blame Grandaunt." Gu Jiao turned to Little Jing Kong and said, "Go eat some snacks first. I'll cook immediately." Only then did Little Jing Kong feel relieved and leave. And Royal Prince listened to Gu Jiao's voice and found it hard to connect her with the woman who slapped his younger sister and Gu Jinyu. It was as if they were two different people. It was also as if her patience and gentleness were all given to her family. When there was no one else in the room, Gu Jiao asked again, "Royal Princein, why did you suddenly come to visit?" Originally, it was just a guess. Now that she called him an royal prince, it confirmed his identity. After all, it was impossible for people who had never seen him to know that he was an royal prince. Commandery Prince and could not tell her that he suspected that the Empress Dowager was hiding in her house. He hesitated for a moment and said, "To be honest, I'm here to apologize. Miss Gu has been wronged because of my sister." Gu Jiao. "Oh." And Royal Prince couldn't tell if she believed him or not. "You're saying the person who knocked me out was your Grandaunt?" Gu Jiao asked, "What's wrong?" And Royal Prince smiled without batting an eyelid. "She's really strong." It seemed that the person wasn't the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager recognized him. And Royal Prince planned to leave. At this moment, Little Jing Kong complained in a small voice from the backyard, "Jiao Jiao, Grandaunt secretly ate candied plums again." "I didn't. Little monk, don't talk nonsense. I'm not a monk. You're little Baldy." This voice. And Royal Prince felt his whole body tremble and his whole body stiffen. Digression. Begging for monthly votes, XX gave out monthly votes in a red packet. Friends who voted for the monthly votes, remember to receive them. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115239314. HTML Genius remembered the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 113. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao walked out and looked at the jar that the old lady was holding tightly in her arms. Great aunt, you said that you can only eat 3 a day. The old lady refused to admit her mistake. I only ate 3. Gu Jiao pointed at the jar. But there are clearly 6 less in this jar. He ate it. The old lady dragged Gu Xiaoshan into the water. Gu Xiaoshan, who was chopping firewood, was confused. What's wrong? What did he eat now? Gu Jiao cruelly confiscated the old lady's candied plums and searched her room for the stock that she had kept for a long time. The old lady's face turned green. Royal Prince heard the familiar voice and his heart tightened. Was it the Empress Dowager? It was a pity that he couldn't see now, but it didn't matter. When the sun rose, his eyes would recover. Gu Jiao finished confiscating the old lady's candied plums and turned around to see Royal Prince walking out blindly. He was standing at the door and looking over. What are you looking at? You can't see. Gu Jiao walked over and said lightly, Where does Royal Prince live? I'll have someone send you back later. Gu Yan's secret guards were in the dark, so they could do it for him. Royal Prince had already made up his mind to stay. He said softly, I feel a little dizzy. Can I stay at Miss Gu's house for a night? Gu Jiao narrowed her eyes. Was this guy here to extort money? I don't have an extra room in my house. Royal Prince was about to say, It's okay. I can squeeze with someone. But before he could say anything, he was interrupted by a familiar voice. Royal Prince? The person who came was none other than Marquis Gu, who she hadn't seen for a long time. Marquis Gu came to find Gu Jiao. He thought about what happened last time. That domineering Miss Shuang was indeed asking for a beating. But what did Jinyu do wrong? Why did this girl slap Jinyu's mouth too? After hesitating for a few days, he finally decided to come to the village and have a good talk with her about bullying Jinyu. No matter if she returned to the manor or not, she couldn't vent her anger on Jinyu just because she didn't like him. The door was open, and he walked in directly. Unexpectedly, as soon as she passed through the central room, she saw Royal Prince, who she had not seen for the whole day. Didn't he say that he went to the town for a stroll? And buy some Li Ji osmanthus cake for Miss Shuang? Why would he appear in his daughter's house? Could it be that they were also here to denounce him? Marquis Gu took a few steps forward and found that Royal Prince seemed to be injured. His head was wrapped in gauze and his eyes were also covered with gauze. A terrifying thought flashed through his mind. Could it be that girl also beat up Royal Prince? Oh heavens, what kind of devil incarnate did he give birth to? Marquis Gu bowed so hard that his waist almost broke. Your Highness, my daughter is rude, please forgive her. Royal Prince looked at him in confusion. Marquis, you don't think that your daughter caused my injury, do you? Marquis Gu was startled. Was it not? Royal Prince gently tugged at the corner of his lips. I was careless. I still have to thank your daughter for treating me. Ah. Marquis Gu was dumbfounded. Royal Prince probed. I didn't expect your daughter to be proficient in the art of medicine. However, Marquis Gu did not understand and said embarrassedly, Royal Prince, you flatter me. She worked as a medicine boy in the town's clinic for a few days. She can't be considered proficient in the art of medicine, and only knows the most basic things. In my opinion, we should ask Royal Prince to quickly move to the manor, and let the manor's imperial physician treat you carefully. Marquis Gu said this because he was indeed worried about Royal Prince An's injury. Secondly, he thought that Royal Prince An came here to denounce Gu Jiao. No matter how much he disliked Gu Jiao was still his and Yao's flesh and blood. He couldn't really let her be punished by Royal Prince An. He had to quickly coax Royal Prince An away. Royal Prince An wanted to use the same trick again. He said that he was dizzy and should not be tired from traveling. Marquis Gu said that he brought the best carriage in the manor and guaranteed that he wouldn't feel any bumps. Marquis Gu was so determined that Royal Prince An couldn't persuade him in the end. Royal Prince An unwillingly sat on the carriage back to the manor. Marquis Gu heaved a sigh of relief. However, Royal Prince An's heart was filled with doubts. Why did Marquis Gu insist on bringing him back to the manor? Was he worried that he would find something in his daughter's house? Why did his daughter live in the countryside? Was it to hide the Empress Dowager? Marquis Gu didn't know that his actions had made Royal Prince An think so much. After returning to the manor, in order to appease Royal Prince An's anger, he gave him many expensive antiques and paintings. It really hurt him. Royal Prince An became more suspicious of Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu was Imperial Concubine Shu's brother, and Imperial Concubine Shu was one of His Majesty's people. Marquis Gu never stayed in the manor for so long in the past. Could it be that he didn't leave this year because of the Empress Dowager? As more and more clues were pieced together, a reasonable truth was pieced together. Royal Prince An called the man in black into the room. After listening to Royal Prince An's deduction, the man in black asked in confusion, "But if she really is the Empress Dowager, why didn't she recognize you?" "According to what you said, she didn't see who you were when she knocked you out. But she should have seen you when you fainted," Royal Prince An said thoughtfully. "I understand this point, so I want to confirm it again. I've already gone there once. If I go there again, it'll arouse suspicion. Go there tomorrow and say that. I want to apologize for the two misunderstandings. I hope that the two families can bury the hatchet. I also hope that she won't mention my sister's bullying to anyone in the capital, so as to not ruin my sister's reputation." The man in black replied, "Yes." Royal Prince An said, "You must see the Empress Dowager and tell her about the situation in the capital." The man in black cupped his fists. "Yes, sir." But, thinking of something, the man in black frowned and said, "If she really is the Empress Dowager, what do you plan to do?" Royal Prince An's eyes were cold. "What can I do? Of course I'll bring her back to the capital. I can't let her fall into anyone's hands. It doesn't matter if it's His Majesty or someone else." The man in black hesitated for a moment and said, "I'm afraid that the capital isn't safe now. It's still a mystery how the Empress Dowager got leprosy. His Majesty hid the truth about the Empress Dowager's illness and claimed that she was recovering in the palace because of a sudden illness. If we bring the Empress Dowager back like this, won't we be telling His Majesty that we know everything? And we'll bring the Empress Dowager back without saying anything. Will His Majesty think that we're disloyal to him?" Royal Prince An snorted. "Is this the first time he's afraid of the Zhuang family? From the moment he and Marquis Xuanping's marriage alliance, he's been thinking of ways to contain the Zhuang family. I'm afraid that the Empress Dowager's illness has something to do with His Majesty. The situation in the imperial court is getting worse for the Zhuang family. If the Empress Dowager doesn't come out to control the situation, the Zhuang family will become the second Lu family. There used to be 4 hegemons in the capital: Marquis Xuanping's Xiao family, Duke Luo's Luo family, Duke Ding's Lu family, and Grand Secretary Zhuang family. His Majesty didn't come from a good background. His birth mother didn't even have the right to raise him. He was raised by concubine Jing. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't have a son, because she didn't get along with the Crown Prince's maternal family, the Lu family. She defeated the Crown Prince and the Lu family, and put concubine Jing's adopted son on the throne. However, His Majesty was an ungrateful wretch. Not only was he not grateful to Empress Dowager Zhuang, but he was also afraid of her after seeing how powerful Empress Dowager Zhuang was. The daughter sent to the palace by the Zhuang family should have been the Empress, but he made Marquis Xuanping's sister Empress in the throne room, and married his favorite princess Xinyang to Marquis Xianping. With the support of Marquis Xuanping's family, His Majesty was like a tiger that had grown wings and weakened the Zhuang family's power. However, Empress Dowager Zhuang was still too powerful. As long as she suppressed His Majesty couldn't shake the Zhuang family's foundation. While the Empress Dowager was recovering in the palace, the Zhuang family was suppressed by Marquis Xuanping's family. If this continued, the Zhuang family would be finished. Therefore, even if the Empress Dowager would be in great danger once she returned to the capital, the Zhuang family couldn't care less. Wu Yang, this is our fate. It was his fate to be a hostage in the Chen kingdom. It was also the Empress Dowager's fate to go through fire and water for the Zhuang family. Early the next morning, the man in black changed into a guard's uniform and went to Qingchuan village with a large box of gifts. Gu Yan and the other two went to school. Gu Jiao opened the door for him. Who are you? Gu Jiao asked. He cupped his hands and smiled. My name is Wu Yang. I'm Prince An's guard. I'm here to apologize to Miss Gu on the orders of the prince. Gu Jiao said. Didn't he already apologize yesterday? Wu Yang said politely. The prince was injured yesterday and had some things to say. He asked me to come again today. Gu Jiao waited for him to continue. Wu Yang asked, Can I move these gifts inside for Miss Gu first? Gu Jiao didn't refuse. Wu Yang moved the large box into the central room. He opened the box and took out several large brocade boxes. He said to Gu Jiao, The prince hopes that Miss Gu won't mention to anyone that my miss spoke rudely when you return to the capital. My miss has been spoiled by her family and has a domineering personality. The prince apologizes to you. However, reputation is too important to a girl. If people know that she bullies others like this, I'm afraid that she will suffer a lot of criticism in the future. I hope that Miss Gu can understand the prince's love for his sister. It sounded like he was here to shut her up. Gu Jiao didn't say anything and indicated for him to put the things down. Wu Yang jumped out of 2 brocade boxes and said to Gu Jiao, I scared little brother and old madam yesterday. The prince ordered me to apologize to them personally. She went to school in Jingkong. I'm afraid you won't be able to see her. Grandaunt doesn't like to see strangers. I'll pass on your apology. Was she really on guard? Wu Yang originally only believed 30% of it, but now he believed 50%. He stood up and said, Then I'll have to trouble Miss Gu. May I borrow the latrine? Gu Jiao glanced at him, please. Wu Yang went to the latrine with a normal expression. Wu Yang was stalling for time. He had to see the Empress Dowager today. He was lucky that the old madam had a nightmare and woke herself up. She came out to the courtyard to get some fresh air and bumped into Wu Yang. Wu Yang was Prince An's confidant. He had followed Prince An to see the Empress Dowager many times. He was familiar with the Empress Dowager's appearance, unlike Marquis Gu who had only seen her twice. The person in front of him was dressed like an old lady from the countryside. She was calm and composed. Her aura was far from that of the ruthless Empress Dowager Zhuang. However, Wu Yang could still recognize that she was the Empress Dowager. There was a mole on the Empress Dowager's right earlobe. Wu Yang was sure that he didn't recognize it wrongly. Wu Yang was so excited that he took a big step forward. The old madam had just finished a nightmare and was still in shock. Then, a 7-foot-tall man appeared out of thin air in the backyard. She was shocked. Who are you? She asked fiercely. Wu Yang was stunned. This one is Wu Yang. What, 5 or 6 sheep? I've never heard of it. Go away. The old madam anxiously pushed him away. Jiao Jiao. Why is there another strange person in the house? Gu Jiao put down the brocade box and walked over. She glanced at Wu Yang and said to the old madam, He is the bodyguard of the prince from yesterday. He came to apologize. The old madam raised her eyebrows and said, Did he send anything? Gu Jiao nodded. Yes. The old madam went to the main room to look through the porcelain, jade, and tea. She had a look of disgust. There isn't even a piece of osmanthus cake. Not sincere. Emph. Wu Yang was stunned. What was going on? The Empress Dowager was different from what he thought. I want to eat sugar egg, the old madam said to Gu Jiao. All right. Gu Jiao agreed. It was fine as long as there wasn't any sugar water. Give him a bowl as well, the old madam said in a serious manner. He sent so many gifts, so you have to ask him to stay for a meal. That's fine. Gu Jiao nodded. She went to the kitchen to cook 2 bowls of sugar egg. One bowl was half full, and the other bowl had less sugar. The old madam generously said, Jiao Jiao, you can go do your work. I'll take care of the guests. Wu Yang gave the Empress Dowager a thumbs up in his heart. First she used the excuse of eating sugar egg to make him stay. Then she thought of a way to send the Gu family away. She was worthy of being the wise Empress Dowager. Gu Jiao carried a pole to the entrance of the village to fetch water. There was no third person in the room. The old madam's expression instantly became excited. Wu Yang was also excited. The Empress Dowager's great wisdom was really just an act. The Empress Dowager wanted to recognize him. Quickly. Jiao Jiao will be back soon. Yes, quickly. Wu Yang nodded like he was pounding garlic. In the end, he saw the old madam exchange a bowl of sugar egg with him. She then picked up a spoon and ate happily. Wu Yang. Digression, monthly votes. Bite a small handkerchief to beg for monthly votes. Also, remember to receive a monthly vote red packet. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428266/115235375. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 114. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are here. In order to eat sweets, the old lady let Wu Yang be a tool at home for the whole day. Wu Yang said, Miss Gu, I'm hungry. I want to eat candied fruit. Miss Gu, I'm thirsty. I want to drink mung bean soup, the super sweet kind. When he returned to the villa, Wu Yang was doubting life. Prince saw him in the room. How was it? Did you see the Empress Dowager? Wu Yang's face was green. I saw her. But was that really the Empress Dowager? Wu Yang told Royal Prince about his miserable day. Prince was shocked. He remembered that when he was in the village yesterday, he seemed to have heard the Empress Dowager say some strange things. But he was too excited and didn't take it to heart. Later, he thought that the Empress Dowager was pretending to be crazy in order to numb the Gu family, who put her under house arrest. I don't think so. Wu Yang pondered. When Miss Gu went to get water, only the Empress Dowager and I were left in the room. If the Empress Dowager was pretending to be crazy before, then there was no one else. She should be honest with me. However, she didn't. The Empress Dowager only focused on eating the poached eggs. Every time he wanted to speak, the Empress Dowager would raise her hand to stop him. Why didn't he realize that the Empress Dowager was so greedy before? In Prince N's impression, the Empress Dowager Zhuang wasn't someone who would ignore business for a little food. But it was true that she couldn't eat too many sweets. The imperial doctor told him that it was better for the elderly to eat light food. Prince N murmured. How could this be? Did the Empress Dowager lose her memory? And caused her personality to change? Or was this the Empress Dowager's true nature? The Empress Dowager was pretending all those years in the palace? But what kind of person could pretend for decades? He had been wearing a cruel and merciless mask for dozens of years. Wouldn't he be exposed? Prince N was more willing to believe the former. The Empress Dowager forgot some things, so the change in her personality disappeared. She became a complete stranger. Wu Yang didn't dare to guess. What do you plan to do? Do you want to bring the Empress Dowager back to the capital? I don't know. Royal Prince N sighed. An Empress Dowager who only knew how to eat and drink would not be a match for the Emperor. But leaving her here under the eyes of the Marquis of Ding, and he was not at ease. Royal Prince N thought for a while and thought of something. He asked Wu Yang, I have a few things that I don't understand. What? Wu Yang asked. Royal Prince pushed open the window and looked at the courtyard filled with flowers and plants. How did the Empress Dowager lose her memory? Does this matter have anything to do with Ding and Marquis Fu? Wu Yang followed him and walked over. Does your highness mean that they deliberately made the Empress Dowager silly? Royal Prince shot him a cold look. Wu Yang shrunk his neck and lowered his head. This subordinate has misspoken. How could she say that the Empress Dowager was stupid? Although it was indeed a little silly. Royal Prince asked, have you investigated the identity of that Miss Gu? Wu Yang said, I've investigated clearly. She's the older sister of the twins. Back then, the Marquis gave birth in the temple and was swapped with a village woman's child. Gu Jinyu should be from that village. However, because they had nurtured her for so many years, they did not send Gu Jinyu back even after discovering the truth a few days ago. As for the real Miss Gu, it said that she did not want to return to the Fu. Also, she is already married. Her husband came here from outside. Royal Prince said, who did you ask? Wu Yang said, this subordinate directly asked the Marquis. Yao Shi did not feel that this was a secret. When Wu Yang asked, Yao Shi told him the truth. Royal Prince thought for a while. Then Miss Gu was not purposely placed in the village by Marquis Gu? Wu Yang shook his head and said, it shouldn't be. This subordinate guessed that the Empress Dowager was taken in by Miss Gu after she lost her memory. But how did she become the great-aunt of Miss Gu's husband? Leprosy. Royal Prince narrowed his eyes and said, what? Wu Yang was stunned. Royal Prince raised his hand to touch the potted begonia on the windowsill. Didn't you just say that Miss Gu's husband is from outside? Wu Yang was confused. That's right, but what does this have to do with them taking in the Empress Dowager? Could it be that Miss Gu's husband is the Empress Dowager's relative? This could not be. The Empress Dowager had a noble status. How could she be a relative of a poor boy from the countryside? Royal Prince thought for a while. If the Empress Dowager got leprosy and fainted in front of Miss Gu's house, and Miss Gu touched her without knowing it, what would you do if it was you? Wu Yang's eyes widened. How could that be? Leprosy is so infectious. If she touched it, she would be sent to Leprosy Mountain. Could it be? Royal Prince faintly raised the corner of his lips. That's right. In order not to be sent to Leprosy Mountain, they could only take in the Empress Dowager and cure her. In order not to arouse suspicion, they lied that they were the great-aunt of Miss Gu's husband and came to seek refuge with them. Wu Yang suddenly realized, that's right. Miss Gu's husband is from outside. Her husband's great-aunt is also from outside. No one will suspect them. Royal Prince fiddled with a blooming begonia in front of him. What I'm curious about is, how did Miss Gu cure the Empress Dowager's leprosy? Marquis Gu said that she was only a little medicine boy. It seemed that he still did not understand his own daughter. Wu Yang suddenly looked into Royal Prince's eyes. Royal Prince, if she can cure leprosy then... Royal Prince raised a finger and stopped him from continuing. This prince still does not trust her. Wu Yang sighed with a complicated expression. Yes. Then, what does Royal Prince plan to do with the Empress Dowager? Royal Prince thought for a while. The Empress Dowager has lost her memories. If we really went to meet her, she would not leave with this prince. Moreover, her identity might be exposed. This is not a wise move. Call a few people and steal the Empress Dowager out in the middle of the night. Wu Yang, steal people? Why did he feel that there was something wrong with this statement? Wu Yang moved very quickly. At night he brought 7 experts to Clear Spring Village to kidnap people. When he arrived at Miss Gu's house, he found that there were 2 hidden guards hiding nearby. They should be the hidden guards of Marquis Ding and's manor that were secretly protecting the twins. Wu Yang thought that it would be best to lead the 2 away. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if they woke up the Empress Dowager. But hidden guards were different from normal guards. It was unlikely that they would leave their master's side at the same time. Just as Wu Yang was pondering how to carry out his plan, the 2 hidden guards walked out of the house and fled into the forest. It was unknown where they went. Wu Yang. This was also possible? He did not care that much. Time was precious. He had to move quickly. Wu Yang gestured for them to attack. The 7 black-clothed people soared into the air and flew into the backyard. Wu Yang also planned to fly into the yard. Unfortunately, he had just assumed a posture. Before he could jump, he heard a loud bang. One of the black-clothed people was kicked out like a sandbag. Wu Yang was a little confused. Was the method of entering wrong? Wu Yang jumped onto the wall. At this time, the second black-clothed person flew past his eyes. He drew a beautiful arc in the air and fell heavily onto the empty ground outside the room. Wu Yang was completely dumbfounded. Didn't the hidden guards already leave? Could they have returned so quickly? He looked towards the backyard, but where were the hidden guards? It was clearly the young Miss Gu who had slapped Gu Jinyu and Zhuang Kaidai. That day, he had felt that young Miss Gu had gone too far. She even bullied a weak girl who did not even have the strength to truss up a chicken. Now, it seemed that she had been merciful. Otherwise, with the strength of her hand that could send an expert flying with a single punch, if she really wanted to kill them, wouldn't Gu Jinyu and Zhuang Kaidai's heads be smashed? Although the people that Wu Yang had brought over were not top-class experts, they were still much stronger than the average expert. Even so, they had been beaten up by young Miss Gu to the point of not being able to retaliate. Wu Yang wanted to cry. He finally understood why the 2 hidden guards of Marquis Ding and Fu had suddenly fled into the forest. They were worried. They were afraid that with him here, they would not dare to charge in and ruin this young Miss Mood. Wu Yang calculated in his mind. He was afraid that he was not this young Miss Gu's opponent. Apologies for the offense, young Miss Gu. Wu Yang took out a crossbow from his back and knocked a short arrow. He aimed at Gu Jiao's shoulder and pulled the trigger. But in the blink of an eye, the matriarch's door suddenly opened. She walked out with a yawn. What is it that is so noisy? Wu Yang's hand trembled in shock. The arrow had missed. It had missed in the matriarch's direction. Wu Yang's heart trembled. The speed of a crossbow was several times faster than an arrow. It was already too late for him to grab his arrow back. In the nick of time, he saw Gu Jiao jump up and land in front of the matriarch. She pulled the matriarch to the side. The arrow brushed past the back of her hand and nailed itself to the wall behind the 2 of them. The back of Gu Jiao's hand had been scratched and was covered in blood. She used her other hand to pull out the arrow and fiercely threw it in the direction of Wu Yang in the night. That arrow was too fast. It was so fast that even an expert like Wu Yang could not dodge it. His right shoulder was hit by the arrow. He gave a grunt and said to the black-clothed men on the ground, "Retreat." After the group of people left, the village regained its tranquility. The matriarch saw the blood on the back of Gu Jiao's hand. "Jiao Jiao, you're injured." Gu Jiao did not care. "It's nothing. It's just a scratch." The matriarch scolded. "Our family's life is getting better, but now we're being targeted by thieves." Thieves. The thieves that came the previous few times didn't have such skills and equipment. Gu Jiao looked at the boundless night sky. She felt that these people did not come for the money. They went straight to the small east room. That was her great-aunt's room. Wu Yang returned to the villa with an injury. He did not have time to heal himself before he went to the study to see Royal Prince and looked at him in confusion. What happened? He knelt down on one knee and said with shame, "I failed in my duty. I couldn't bring the Empress Dowager back, and almost hurt the Empress Dowager." He didn't dare to hide anything and reported everything to Royal Prince's. A trace of surprise flashed through Royal Prince's eyes. "I didn't expect," Wu Yang agreed. "Yes, I didn't expect that Miss Gu, who grew up in the common people, would have such skills." Royal Prince pursed his lips. "No, I didn't expect that she would sacrifice herself to save an old lady who has nothing to do with her. She did it to protect herself. Now that she had recovered, she could have sent her away, or at least she did not have to risk her life to save her." According to Wu Yang, if she dodged a little, her heart would have been pierced by the arrow. He really did not understand this Miss Gu more and more. He looked at the bright moon in the sky and whispered, "Miss Gu, how much do I not know about you?" Wu Yang begged. "Royal Prince, I'll tomorrow night." Royal Prince interrupted him lightly. "No need. Since she protects the Empress Dowager so much, let the Empress Dowager stay by her side." Wu Yang was shocked. "Royal Prince, Royal Prince and looked into the distance. Now is not the best time to bring the Empress Dowager back to the capital. Let me go back and report to grandfather. After making all the arrangements, I will bring her back safely. Miss Gu, we will meet again soon. The next day, Royal Prince and bid farewell to Marquis Gu and Lady Yao. The provincial examination is around the corner. I can't stay here any longer. I must return to the capital as soon as possible. I am indebted to Marquis and Lady Marquis for your hospitality these few days. I am very grateful. For the first time, he used Junior. Marquis Gu was so scared that he was tongue-tied. Royal Prince Anne's gentle gaze fell on Lady Yao's face. Lady Marquis, your daughter is very outstanding. She is better than countless daughters in the capital. If there is a chance, please bring your daughter to the manor to have a chat with Mengdai. Lady Yao bowed and thanked him. Gu Jinyu, who was behind the two, could not help but blush. Was the royal prince praising her? Zhuang Mengdai also thought that her brother was praising Gu Jinyu. She pursed her lips. She already knew that there was no such thing as triplets. Gu Jinyu was the Gu family's wrong child. That girl was the real daughter. Neither of them were good people. She did not like either of them. The brother and sister set foot on the road back to the capital. The carriage had gone far away, but Gu Jinyu still had not recovered from Royal Prince Anne's praise. There wasn't a single girl who wouldn't like Princess Anne, but most of them were just wishful thinking. But what if Royal Prince Anne was interested in a girl first? From what she knew, Royal Prince Anne had not discussed marriage. His words just now, were he hinting at something to her father and mother? Gu Jinyu secretly glanced at Marquis Gu and Lady Yao. Their expressions were calm. It was obvious that they did not think in this direction. She could not help but feel anxious. Father was a blockhead in this area. She could not count on him. Mother only had her own daughter in her heart. She did not care about her at all. If Mother knew that Royal Prince Anne was interested in a girl from the Marquis's manor, would she let Gu Jiao marry over? In just a moment, Gu Jinyu's mind filled in many possibilities. Her mind was in a mess. On one hand, Royal Prince Anne's praise evoked her unrealistic fantasies. On the other hand, she desperately wanted to return to the capital and find imperial concubine, Shu, to make a decision. Gu Jiao received the farm tools from the blacksmith shop. There were a lot of farm tools. The worker from Huichan Hall went to get them. Before she left, the old blacksmith called out to her. Little brother, what is the surname of your young miss? The worker said, You mean Miss Gu? She is not my young miss. The old blacksmith was stunned. Ah, then she is. The worker did not know that Gu Jiao practiced medicine. He said, She is a friend of our boss. The old blacksmith asked, Can I trouble little brother to tell me where she lives so that I can go and thank her? The worker said, Miss Gu said that if she succeeds, she can be exempted from paying for the farm tools. The old blacksmith, but there were no buts. The worker left with the large carts of farm tools. The old blacksmith looked at the back of the horse carriage as it left. He was in a daze for a long time. Gu Jiao did not touch the empty space halfway up the mountain for the time being. She hired the nearby villagers to cultivate a large medicinal field on the mountain. She also dug a fish pond and a ditch to draw water from the bottom of the waterfall into the fish pond. Gu Yan's secret guards became the coolies in the mountain. They were sent to dig the ditch every day. After a month, the two of them became really tanned. In the blink of an eye, it was autumn. This year's summer was not particularly hot. Instead, it was the return of the hot autumn that made people sweat profusely. Xiao Liulong's group had been in the provincial capital for a period of time. Under the careful arrangements of the Lin family, they stayed in the most advanced and luxurious inn closest to the provincial capital's tribute court. Steward Zhou had asked several times to invite Xiao Lulang to the residence as a guest, but he was rejected by Xiao Lulang every time. Lin Qingye had been tortured by Xiao Lulang for the past few months. When he went to Qingchuan town, he was still a little fatty. When he returned to the provincial capital, he had lost 2 sizes of weight. Every time Xiao Lulang taught him questions, he would feel enlightened. He also did not understand why Xiao Lulang was so knowledgeable. He was more knowledgeable than all the teachers in the residence combined. However, When it was Xiao Liulong's turn to give him questions, he was done for. In any case, he was someone who had experienced the county exam, the capital exam, and the academy exam. Normal questions were not difficult for him. However, were the questions Xiao Liulang gave him questions? They were knives. In fact, even the 4 books and 5 classics had a scope of examination. Some chapters had to be memorized, while others were not. Xiao Liulang did not care about this. He casually gave a set of exam questions, and more than half of them were not important chapters. Lin Qingye's head was about to explode. He had lost weight from Xiao Liulong's examination. Lin Qingye complained to Feng Lin. Feng Lin made a no sound and said, "You misunderstood him. He did not deliberately not test the important chapters. He simply did not know which chapters were important. He had never highlighted the important points. He directly went from head to back to tail. And he even memorized it backwards without missing a word." Even after being tortured by Xiao Liulang, Lin Qingye still did not choose to return to the residence after returning to the provincial capital. He, Xiao Liulang, and Feng Lin stayed together at an inn. The provincial examination had a total of 3 rounds, and each round lasted for 3 days. The first round was on the 8th day of the 8th month, which was tomorrow. The inn was filled with provincial examination examinees, and the entire inn's atmosphere became tense. The only person who could be calm was Xiao Liulang. Feng Lin was also a little nervous, but he had too many things to do, so he did not have the time to be nervous. "Little Lin, come and help." Feng Lin called Lin Qingye to the inn's small kitchen. This small kitchen was rented by the Lin family for a large sum of money, and they had even arranged for a chef to be in charge of it. The provincial examination did not care about the examinees' meals. The chef wanted to cook for them, but was rejected by Feng Lin. Before leaving, Gu Jiao gave him a list of things to take note of and related recipes. The recipes were very detailed. Gu Jiao even took the weather into consideration. If the weather was cold, the first recipe would be used. If the weather was hot, the second recipe would be used. Biscuits, jerky, oranges, pickled vegetables. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye fiddled in the kitchen for an entire afternoon, and finally prepared everything they needed. The jerky was roasted by them, and the aroma of the meat filled the air, making all the examinees in the inn hungry. The pickled vegetables had been pickled a few days ago, and now that it was done, Feng Lin filled 3 small jars. The biscuits could not be left for too long, and were made by the chef before dawn. Feng Lin instructed the biscuits to be dry, without any moisture. Every provincial capital's provincial examination had 2 main examiners, appointed by the imperial court. They and the local examiners entered the examination courtyard on the 6th day of the new year, and first held a banquet. The inner curtain officials entered the inner curtain area in the back hall, and the examiners closed the curtains. The inner curtain officials were also known as the marking officials. They stayed from the day they entered until the end of the provincial examination, and only left after marking all the examination papers. The entire process could take up to half a month. During this time, they were not allowed to interact with the outside world, and even the examiners outside the curtains were not allowed to interact with each other. On the 8th day of the new year, the examinees came to the examination venue early. Although each round had 3 days, the real examination only had 1 day in between. The first day was for the entrance inspection, and the third day was for the exit inspection. Early in the morning, there was a long queue outside the examination courtyard. Xiao Liulang and the other 2 came neither early nor late, and were in the 100th place. They were not in a hurry, but Steward Zhou was beside them. The provincial examination did not allow people to line up for them, otherwise their Lin family would have outsourced the examination courtyard. "Have you brought the water?" Steward Zhou asked Lin Qingye. Lin Qingye nodded. "Yes." Steward Zhou asked again, "Have you brought all the food?" Lin Qingye nodded again, yes. He could still say these 2 words without stuttering. Steward Zhou was still worried. "Then are your clothes thick enough? I'm afraid you'll catch a cold at night." "It's hot," Lin Qingye said. Steward Zhou sighed. The weather this year was abnormal. It wasn't hot when it should be hot, but it wasn't cold when it should be cold. He heard that the crops in the countryside were not growing well. Steward Zhou wanted to say something more, But Lin Qingye frowned. Leave annoying. Steward Zhou. Aya. Steward Zhou had just taken 2 steps when he was shocked by Feng Lin, and almost fell. What's wrong? He turned around and asked. Feng Lin said, I forgot to give this to you. Jianyang said that if the weather is hot, we should bring this into the examination hall. It can refresh the mind and also drive away mosquitoes and stop itching. It was 3 bottles of essential bombs. However, Gu Jiao had replaced the glass bottles with jade bottles. After adding a stopper, she sealed the bottles with wax. Can we bring this? Steward Zhou asked. Other than water and food, they couldn't bring anything else with them. Feng Lin explained, this can be used externally, but it can also be taken orally. Jianyang said that if anyone asks, we should drink it and show it to them. Xiao Liulong's gaze was subtle. You two are very close now. Feng Lin didn't notice his companion's dangerous gaze and said, I was ignorant in the past and misunderstood Jianyang. She's actually a very good person. Lulang really, to be able to get such a wife is a man's good fortune. I also want to. Xiao Liulong's gaze was like a knife, and Feng Lin finally couldn't ignore it. Feng Lin shrunk his neck resentfully. Okay, I don't want to. Xiao Lulang took the essential bombs. Was it the strange things in the box again? He had seen these words before. That night, most of the things that rolled out of the box had these words on them. However, that night, he didn't see these few bottles of green things. So it wasn't his imagination. That small box was able to produce strange things, and they were always different. Did it have some kind of strange trick or mechanism? Since these bottles were medicine, then could the ones he saw before also be medicine? Was it a small medicine box? Even someone as smart as Xiao Lulang couldn't understand Gu Jiao's small box. Soon it was his, Feng Lin's, and Lin Qingye's turn to be searched by the guards. Feng Lin indicated that they had brought water. When he opened the bottle and drank a drop, he almost died from the taste. Oh my God, this is too refreshing. After entering the examination hall, the examinees were assigned to their respective examination sheds. Some people also called them rooms. The rooms were simple and crude. There were only 2 wooden planks. One was used as a table, and the other was used as a chair. They were respectively embedded in the grooves on both sides of the room. At night, the examinees would put the 2 planks together to make a bed and spend the night there. During these 3 days, the examinees weren't allowed to leave their rooms. They had to eat, drink, go to the toilet, and sleep inside. The first test was about memorization and poetry. It was reasonable to say that it would be the Analects of Confucius, the Doctrine of the Mean, or the Great Learning, or the Mencius, as well as a 5-character 8-rhyme poem that he had composed himself. However, this year's provincial examination questions were especially abnormal. There was an additional test, the Classic of Filial Piety. Strictly speaking, the Classic of Filial Piety wasn't long. It was less than 2,000 words. However, the problem was, it wasn't tested. If it wasn't tested, who would memorize it, right? When he saw that he had to memorize the Classic of Filial Piety, Lin Qingye's hair stood on end. It wasn't because he was scared, but because he was excited. Because Xiao Lulang had tested it. Xiao Lulang was a very strict teacher. As long as Lin Qingye didn't know how to answer the questions, he would retest him a 2nd, 3rd, or even 4th time until Lin Qingye knew how to do it. Not only did Lin Qingye lose weight, but he also became bald at a young age. It was all because of Xiao Liulong's torture. However, at this moment, Lin Qingye loved Xiao Liulong's torture to death. Lin Qingye knew that there would be very few people memorizing the Classic of Filial Piety in the provincial examination. Just the first test alone was enough for him to lead many people. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115206174. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg. Com Bikuga mobile reading website. M. ZHHBQG. Com. Chapter 115. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. Lin Qingye began to write vigorously. Feng Lin, who was in the back row, could not help but secretly laugh when he received the questions. When Xiao Lulang tutored Lin Qingye, he also listened in. Lin Qingye was afraid of Xiao Lulang, so he would sometimes take the exam papers for himself to look over. When he felt that there were no problems, he would then present it to Xiao Lulang. After a while, he also knew how to recite the Book of Filial Piety. If not for the strict rules of the examination hall, Feng Lin would have wanted to hum a little tune. Just from this examination alone, the examiner's questions were not as difficult as Xiao Liulang's demonic difficulty. The other examinees were not as calm as the three of them. They did not expect that this year's examination questions would exceed their syllabus. It was going to kill them. However, the examinees who were able to enter the provincial examination all had relatively strong mental fortitude. Although they were roaring in their hearts, they still forced themselves to write. This year's heat was very strong. It was very hot when they came in yesterday, but it was not as hot as today. The examination shed was narrow and cramped, and there was no ventilation. Not long after the examination began, the examinees were sweating from the heat. Some daring examinees began to undress. Although it was damaging to their appearance, the examination hall's rules were that as long as you did not cheat, the examiners did not care if you shit or fart. At noon, the sun shone down from the sky and the temperature in the examination shed increased. All the examinees felt that they were being roasted on a metal plate. Finally, an examinee from the provincial capital fainted from heatstroke. This was a young master from a large family. He had not suffered much and was not like the poor students who often worked in the fields. Instead, he was able to withstand the heat. The examiner paid attention to his movements. It was best if he could wake up on his own. Otherwise, once he was carried out of the examination shed, he would not be able to return to the examination hall. After waiting for a while, the examiner still did not respond. The examiner could only call for the guards to carry him out to see a doctor. Just as the guards carried him to the entrance of the examination hall, he woke up. He cried and shouted that he wanted to go back to the examination hall. However, the examination hall's rules would not be broken for anyone, not even a prince. Therefore, the imperial examinations had extremely high requirements for the examinees in all aspects. Not only did the examinees need to have a strong mentality, but their physical fitness must also be good enough. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to withstand such a high-intensity examination. This small episode also created a huge psychological pressure on the rest of the examinees. Coupled with the fact that the weather was indeed getting hotter, everyone felt that their exam booth had become a huge furnace. At first, the examinees who refused to take off their clothes could no longer care about anything else. Not taking off their underwear was already the last bit of respect they could show to the examination hall. Xiao Lulang also felt the heat. If it was in the past, he would have fainted from the heat. However, for the past 6 months, Gu Jiao had dragged him to do the re-examination every day. Even when he went out for exams, she would ask Feng Lin to keep an eye on him. At first, he thought that everything she did was in vain because he could not get rid of the shadow in his heart. He could not stand up like a normal person. Only now did he realize that her efforts had not been in vain. His body had become much stronger. After another hour, the temperature in the examination shed reached its peak, and another 2 examinees fainted from the heat. All of the examinees were vexed and their minds were dizzy, unable to think properly. Xiao Lulang took off his outer clothes, but it was still not enough. His gaze suddenly landed on the bag by his hand. He opened the bag and took out the little green bottle that Gu Jiao had Feng Lin bring over. He rubbed a few drops on his temples and forehead. Instantly, a cool air spread from his forehead to his entire body. He instantly felt refreshed, and his ears and eyes became sharper. All of the heat in his body subsided at this moment. He calmed his heart and continued to write the questions. The weather was not so hot until the sun set. After the entire day of exams, the examinees were all paralyzed. It was not known whether it was because of the provincial examinations or because of the heat. Xiao Lulang, Feng Lin and Lin Qingye had it easier than the other examinees because they had Gu Jiao's magical medicine. During the day, everyone did not have much of an appetite. Now that it was cold, they finally remembered to eat. However, what made the examinees collapse was that the weather was too hot. The dry rations they had brought in had all gone bad. There was a faint rancid smell in the exam tent. The invigilators could not help but pinch their noses. But very quickly, a sweet and sour fruity fragrance floated over. It was oranges. Once the skin was peeled, a handful of orange-scented oil would splash out. It was extremely fresh. Rumble, some of the examinees' stomachs grumbled. Immediately after, everyone began to drool. The oranges were too fragrant. They were sour and sweet. Xiao Lulang ate an orange and took out a piece of jerky and a piece of pancake. The pancake and jerky had been baked dry, so they were not spoiled. The pickled vegetables were also not spoiled. He began to eat slowly and carefully. The fragrance of the meat and the pickled vegetables filled the entire exam hall. All of the examinees collapsed. The difficult exam questions and bad weather during the day were already torturous enough. Why did they still have to eat such fragrant food in the exam hall? Were they really here for the exam? Who would bring such a sumptuous meal for the exam? If it was not for the fact that whispering was prohibited in the exam hall, the examinees would have shouted, "Brother, give me a bite of your food. In the future, wherever you go, I will protect you." Misfortune never comes alone. In such hot weather, how could there be fewer mosquitoes at night? Xiao Lulang and the other two applied essential ointment and slept comfortably for the entire night. When the examinees who had been swatting mosquitoes all night walked out of the exam hall, the dark circles under their eyes were almost unbearable. Fortunately, on the day they left the exam hall, there was a heavy rain in the provincial capital. The weather finally turned cold. On the 11th day, the examinees entered the exam hall again. The second exam was on the 5 classics. It was a discussion essay. The word count for each essay was not high. It had to be no less than 300 words. In previous years, it was mainly about people's livelihood and official career. For example, the world's industry and commerce, water conservancy, agriculture, the division of the 6 ministries, and so on. But this year it was on the pros and cons of removing the vassal state, which directly stunned the examinees. Which examiner was not afraid of death to come up with such a sharp and sensitive question? In the Zhao country, the provincial exam questions were set by the cabinet every year, and then handed over to the emperor for review. Only after the emperor approved would the questions be sealed and sent to each major provincial capital. The questions issued by the imperial court were all the same. However, it did not rule out the possibility that some people or accidents were caused, such as leaking or destroying the questions. Therefore, the imperial court would usually prepare 8 sets of questions. During the exam, the main examiner would randomly draw questions in front of everyone. Up until now, there had not been a precedent of all the provincial capitals drawing the same set of questions. Unfortunately, the main examiner of the provincial capital drew the most difficult set of questions this year. Among the group of examinees, there were people like Xiao Lulang, who were taking the provincial exam for the first time. There were also people who had been taking the exam for most of their lives and whose hair had turned white. But anyone who had taken the exam many times could see that this year's questions were not simple. They did not follow the usual routine. Over the years, the examiners had their own preferences. When the examinees did the questions, they would do their best to cater to the examiner's preferences. This was also why every year, people would spend a lot of money to inquire about the examiner's origins and life stories. But the problem was that removing the vassal state was not an ordinary matter of people's livelihood. It could not be decided by the examiner's preferences. This mainly depended on the attitude of the imperial court. If the imperial court advocated removing the vassal state, then the examiner would definitely not give a paper that opposed removing the vassal state a high score. Otherwise, Wouldn't the examiner be openly challenging the imperial court and the emperor? From the imperial court's recruitment of the Lin family, the examinees generally understood the imperial court's attitude toward the vassal state. At least for the next 10 years, it would be impossible to remove the vassal state. To be on the safe side, most examinees chose to cater to the imperial court's whims. They quoted classics, eloquently described the drawbacks of removing the vassal state, and vigorously advocated the imperial court's current appeasement policy. And in a certain examination shed, Xiao Lulang did not hesitate to write, "Removing the vassal state is imperative." The last exam was on the 14th. The exam would start on the 15th, and it would be on the 8-legged essay. This was Lin Qingye's weakest area. In the children's exam, he had never obtained a high score in the 8-legged essay. He had almost always relied on his essays to obtain the title of a scholar. However, this time, when he looked at the questions on the exam paper, he inexplicably felt that they were not as tricky as the questions that Xiao Lulang usually gave him. Moreover, Xiao Lulang taught him some 8-legged essay techniques, and let him recite a few neat lines of flattery. There was no meaning, but it made the overall style of the essay look high-end and impressive. He wrote it smoothly and fluently. In short, it was hydrology. Lulang said, "If you don't understand hydrology, use hydrology. Don't leave it empty." Lin Qingye felt that his hydrology was very good this time. He didn't even understand what he wrote. Although he didn't get a high score, he probably wouldn't fail like before. After the 3 exams, the examinees had lost a lot of weight. Steward Zhou was waiting outside the examination courtyard early in the morning. Seeing the examinees come out one by one, he was worried to death about his 6th young master. Soon Xiao Lulang and the other 2 came out. No matter how many people there were, Xiao Lulang was always the first to be noticed. Steward Zhou saw him first, and then saw Lin Qingye beside him. Steward Zhou was about to shout, "Young master, you've lost weight," but then the words got stuck in his throat. Why did his young master seem to have gained weight? Actually, Lin Qingye wasn't fat. It was just that the other examinees had lost weight, making the 3 of them look fat. Steward Zhou quickly walked forward and asked excitedly and anxiously, "How was the exam, young master? You didn't let me come over for the previous 2 exams. I was so bored. Can you pass? Are the questions difficult? Why do I feel that everyone's expression is not good?" Lin Qingye said, "Later we'll talk." Steward Zhou looked at the examinees at the side and knew that he was too excited. How was this the place to talk? He smiled and said to Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin, "The exam is finally over. You 2 have worked hard during this period of time. My old master has set up a banquet in the residence. Please do me the honor and follow me to the residence for a chat." The Lin family was the richest family in the provincial capital, and Feng Lin wanted to go and see the world. Who knew that Xiao Lulang would reject him? "No, we are going back to the county. We appreciate old Master Lin's good intentions. We will meet again in the future." Lin Qingye and Steward Zhou were stunned at the same time. Especially Lin Qingye. Even though he had expected that Xiao Lulang would have to go back after the exam, but when it really came to this moment, he felt very reluctant. These days of tutoring with Xiao Lulang was the most miserable torture in his life. But when he entered the exam hall, he realized that it was his most precious experience. "You go later. I will send you." Lin Qingye was anxious and exposed his stuttering problem. His face changed, and a trace of panic flashed in his eyes. Xiao Liulang's face did not show any difference, and the eyes he looked at him with were as calm and cold as usual. "No, you have been away from home for so long. You should go back and take a look." Feng Lin was a little surprised. After reuniting with Xiao Lulang for so long, this was the first time he heard him say such humane words. Thinking carefully, he had changed a lot compared to a year ago. In the end, Lin Qingye was unable to persuade Xiao Lulang to go to his house. He could actually feel that he had a good teacher-student relationship with Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang was cold, but his heart was not cold. But he did not understand why Xiao Lulang was unwilling to go to his house. Steward Zhou smiled. "6th young master, Miss Biao is here. She said that you have worked hard in the provincial exam and wants to take you out to play for a few days." Lin Qingye did not like that love-struck cousin. Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin returned to the inn. When they went upstairs, Feng Lin asked, "Do we have to wait for the results to come out before we leave?" "It would take half a month for the results to come out," Xiao Lulang calmly said. "No need, the results will be reported to the county office." "That's fine too." Feng Lin nodded. Even though he wanted to know his and Xiao Liulang's results as soon as possible, but Xiao Liulang's anxious look clearly showed that he was homesick. He missed Jianyang. Ha ha ha, stinky brat. The two were heading to the guest room when they heard the excited voices of the examinees coming from the main hall. "Hey, did you guys hear? The Imperial College is going to be reopened in the capital." "Really? Who told you? Is there a need to tell me?" "The Imperial notice has already been posted. It's at the entrance of the government office. If you don't believe me, go take a look for yourself. Students with excellent results will have the opportunity to enter the Imperial College after being recommended by the government office. If you get first place in the provincial exam, you will be able to move to the Imperial College without a recommendation." Students were Xiaocai. Generally speaking, the Junior 3 Yuan would have the opportunity to be recommended. If there were no Junior 3 Yuan, even if you got first place, you would still have the opportunity. Feng Lin pulled Xiao Liulang's sleeve. "Lulang, you got 2 first places." Even though he had missed the first place in the college exam due to some reason, he was still an outstanding student. Feng Lin slapped his thigh and said, "Aya, if you had known, you wouldn't have asked for that 1,000 taels of silver. No matter what, you should have taken the exam again. If you get into the Junior 3 Yuan, you will definitely be able to enter the Imperial College." The Imperial College was the highest educational institution in Zhao country. All the students in the world would be proud to enter the Imperial College. Xiao Liulang's expression was very calm. He stood on the stairs and listened to the heated discussions of the examinees in the main hall. But wasn't the Imperial College closed by His Majesty himself? Because the young chancellor was burned to death. Why did it suddenly reopen? It was Imperial Tutor Zhuang who led many important officials to kneel outside the throne room. They kneeled for 3 days and 3 nights before His Majesty finally moved. Imperial Tutor Zhuang is really a loyal official of Zhao country. When His Majesty ordered the Imperial College to be closed, anyone who tried to persuade him was punished by His Majesty. Imperial Tutor Zhuang wasn't punished, right? The examinees didn't want such a good official who served the country and the people to get into trouble. How could that be? If he was punished, he wouldn't have reopened the Imperial College. The examinees discussed heatedly with each other. Xiao Lulang revealed a suspicious and thoughtful expression. He quickly lost the mood to listen to the gossip and returned to his room expressionlessly. Lin Qingye's things had already been taken away by Steward Zhou. Xiao Lulang only packed his own things. Steward Zhou had already paid for the inn's food and lodging, so the two of them didn't need to fork out any more money. At night, Feng Lin wanted to eat the famous snacks in the provincial capital. "After coming here for so long, in order to not get a stomachache, I ate all the food made in the small kitchen. I've been holding it in for so long," Feng Lin said, feeling wronged. When he accompanied Xiao Lulang to the prefectural city for the exam, Feng Lin had eaten something on the way and had gotten a stomachache. Although he had Gu Jiao's anti-diarrheal medicine, he had still been frightened. The provincial examination was no small matter. In order to avoid repeating the same mistakes, they had been avoiding certain foods. Xiao Lulang just happened to want to buy something for his family and agreed to Feng Lin's request. The streets of the provincial capital were wide and long. Even if 4 carriages were to drive side by side, it wouldn't be crowded at all. The shops on both sides of the road were lined up in rows, and the pedestrians walked shoulder to shoulder. It was truly a bustling scene. Feng Lin looked at the lanterns in the vendor's hand and said enviously, "The provincial capital is really lively. It's much more lively than our county city. Even the prefectural city isn't this lively." Xiao Lulang grunted in acknowledgement, which could be considered a response. Feng Lin said longingly, "What do you think the capital is like? The provincial capital is already so lively. Will the capital be even more lively? Will the streets in the capital be wider and longer? More carriages? And the shops are bigger?" "Yes." Xiao Lulang made another sound of acknowledgement. Feng Lin said strangely, "What do you mean by yes? You're making it seem like you've been there before." "Sigh, I really want to go to the capital. I even dream of going there. As long as I can go there once, I can die without regrets." Xiao Lulang said indifferently, "What's so good about the capital? It's just a place of trouble." Feng Lin sighed and shook his head. "You don't have any aspirations. You don't understand. The Imperial College was the holy land for all scholars. If Feng Lin only had a 60% chance of going to the capital in the past, now he had a 100% chance. If he could go to the Imperial College once in his life, he wouldn't have studied hard for more than 10 years in vain. However, he knew his own limitations. With his aptitude, he wouldn't be able to pass the exam and wouldn't be recommended by the prefectural government. The specialties of the provincial capital were sesame sugar and donkey meat. Feng Lin wasn't interested in sugar, but he craved donkey meat. The two of them went to an old donkey meat shop and ordered 2 bowls of donkey meat soup, 2 donkey meat roasts, and a small bowl of braised donkey meat. As the saying goes, donkey meat is fragrant and horse meat stinks. No one would eat donkey meat even if they were beaten to death. As long as the donkey meat was cooked well, its fragrance would fill the entire street. Feng Lin couldn't wait to try the braised donkey meat. Wow, it's delicious. Xiao Lulang was used to Gu Jiao's cooking, and Shi Yi felt that the donkey meat was delicious. After eating, the two of them called for the waiter to settle the bill. However, they were told that someone had already paid for them. Who? Feng Lin asked. Could it be Lin Qingye? That can't be right. Didn't that fellow return to the residence? Why did he sneak out so quickly? He even followed them to the donkey meat shop? He didn't eat at the same table as them and only paid the bill in secret? The waiter smiled and said, "It's a master with the surname Lu." Xiao Yulang's face turned cold. Feng Lin looked at Xiao Lulang. "Do you know him?" Xiao Lulang said calmly, "I don't know him." The waiter smiled again and said, "Master Lu said that he has set up a small banquet at the Drunken Cloud restaurant to entertain Master Xiao and your friends. He sincerely hopes that Master Xiao will do him the honor." I was wondering what was going on. So it's another master who wants to get to know you. Xiao Liulang's 8-legged essay in the prefectural examination was too outstanding. Along the way, there were many people who wanted to get to know him. Feng Lin naturally thought that this Master Lu was one of them. "Are you going?" Feng Lin asked. "No." Xiao Lulang stood up. "Let's go back to the inn." Oh. The two of them went to the inn to stay the night. The next day, they planned to go to the carriage shop to hire a good carriage. When they arrived at the entrance, they saw a man dressed as a waiter waiting outside with a smile. "Are you Master Xiao and Master Feng? My master has prepared a carriage to send you two back to the county." "Who is your master?" Feng Lin asked. "My master's surname is Lu," the waiter replied. Feng Lin muttered, "It can't be the one from yesterday, right?" Feng Lin glanced at the other side's carriage. Good fellow, it was even more luxurious than the Lin family's carriage. This Master Lu's background was not small. "I'm not sitting." Xiao Lulang refused without thinking. Feng Lin, great, talented and willful. The two of them hired the fastest carriage and spent twice as much silver as the other carriages. Without stopping, they headed in the direction of the county. Lin Qingye left the Lin family early in the morning. He planned to send Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin off, but in the end there was nothing. He sighed. He didn't know if he would see them again in this life. After the provincial examination, the inner curtain officials began to grade the papers. There were a total of 12 inner curtain officials in groups of 4. Each paper was graded by 4 inner curtain officials. If there was not much difference in opinion, the total score would be calculated. If there was too much controversy, it would be presented to the chief examiner and the deputy chief examiner for them to decide again. The first test was the 3 classics and the 5 characters and 8 rhymed poems. The chief examiner was the correct rate and handwriting. In previous years, there were either high correct rates but poor handwriting, or excellent handwriting but not as good as another examinee. This year's situation was a bit special. There was an examinee who turned in a perfect answer sheet. Not only was the question not bad, but his handwriting made everyone feel ashamed of their inferiority. He deserved to be the first in the first test. This year's The Classic of Filial Piety stumped many examinees. An inner curtain official sighed with a smile. Except for the one just now, I haven't seen a second examinee who wrote The Classic of Filial Piety correctly. Wait a minute. As soon as he finished speaking, he found another very excellent answer sheet. Although it was not all wrong, it was much better than the previous one. Especially The Classic of Filial Piety. He wrote it all correctly. The inner curtain official across from him said, "What a coincidence. I also have someone who wrote The Classic of Filial Piety correctly." The two looked at each other and smiled. This year's examinees unexpectedly made people surprised. But when they read the second test, the atmosphere became tense. The vassal kings had always been a big problem for the imperial court. They were either powerful dragons that had once occupied a region and had been given the title of vassal king by the imperial court, or they were feudal princes with royal blood. The former had military power, the latter had royal blood, so they were definitely a big problem. As the saying goes, how could one allow others to sleep beside one's bed? It was just that the imperial court did not have enough power to get rid of these vassal kings, so most of the officials in the imperial court did not advocate removing the vassal kings. Xianping Marquis Fu had always been at odds with Grand Tutor Zhuang, but on the matter of removing the vassal kings, the two families' opinions were surprisingly consistent. No one knew that this time's test questions had been set by the emperor himself. The emperor had wanted to listen to the voices of the people and see what kind of foresight and temperament the students of the Zhao country under his rule had. The result was a lot of flattery, but in this pile of flattery, there was one with outstanding literary talent. Although he did not advocate removing the vassal kings, he was not pandering to the whims of the imperial court. Instead, he analyzed the possible consequences of removing the vassal kings in the short term from the current situation of the entire Zhao country, and how to obtain a win-win situation from the economy and agriculture under the pacification policy. This was an article that stunned all the inner curtain officials. If there were no accidents, the first place of the second test would be this article. But very quickly, an examiner found another article that advocated removing the vassal kings. The words used were so sharp that the inner curtain officials' faces turned white. Why didn't this guy just go to the throne room and scold the emperor and the civil and military officials? But, although he scolded fiercely, the reasoning behind his analysis could not be found wrong at all. Originally, when they had read that article, they had felt that it was a win-win situation or a new way out for both sides. But after reading this article that advocated removing the vassal kings, they instantly felt that they were asking a tiger for its skin. If the vassal kings were not removed, the Zhao country would be finished. The deputy head examiner wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He suddenly felt that the Zhao country was surrounded by danger. Was the Zhao country really in danger right now? Not really. It was just that this might not be the case in a few decades. This examinee had contained all the dangers in a few decades into a small discussion of the Tao, letting everyone personally feel the consequences and fear of not removing the vassal kings. This person's skill could be seen at a glance. In terms of literary attainment and writing skills, this examinee had won. The problem was, did they dare to give this kind of alarmist and even rebellious article the title of first place? If this was exposed to the emperor, who could bear the anger of the Son of Heaven? The emperor only wanted to see the thoughts of the examinees. He didn't really want to hear anyone scold him. The inner curtain officials hesitated. First put it to one side. The head examiner said. Once it was put to one side, it was put to one side for a long time. Even after the 8-part essay for the third test had been edited, they still hadn't decided which of the two articles would be first. Digression. A wave of prize-winning questions and answers. Will Lulang be first in the provincial examination? A. Yes. B. No, the newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels to read for free. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhao ZHHBQG. com/89642_896422826/115171389. HTML Genius. Remember this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 116. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Xiao Lulang hired the fastest carriage and arrived at Clear Spring Town at the end of August. When they passed by Sky Fragrance Academy, Feng Lin first moved his luggage back to his dormitory. When he came out, he bumped into Principal Li. Principal Li was surprised to see him. How come you're so fast? Didn't you go to the provincial examination? Did you not make it or something? Where's Lulang? I made it. We came back right after the examination. I'll tell you the details later. Lulang is waiting for me outside. See you, Principal. Feng Lin laughed dryly and ran away. Who didn't know that Xiao Lulang was Principal Li's precious child? If he didn't run away quickly, Principal Li would ask him all sorts of questions. Feng Lin jumped onto the carriage. What's the matter? Xiao Lulang asked. Principal Li. Feng Lin said. Don't let him catch you. If he asks you, you won't be able to go home. Xiao Lulang agreed and urged the coachman to hurry back to the village. The money for the carriage had already been paid in the provincial capital. However, the coachman had followed them all the way and worked as a coachman and a servant. It was really hard work. Xiao Lulang gave him 1 tael of silver. The coachman was flattered and hurriedly bowed. Be careful on the road, Xiao Lulang said. Hey, thank you, young Master Xiao. The coachman happily got on the carriage. People in their line of work were paid for their hard work. Even though they had been gone for more than a month, they only had 2 or 3 taels of silver in their hands. With this 1 tael, their family's life would be much better next month. Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin walked into the village. When they left the village at the end of June, the late rice had just been planted. There were only sparse rice seedlings, but now they were all green. Wow! Your village's wheat is growing really well. This year's weather was abnormal. There was little rain and the fields were dry, causing many crops to die from drought. They had walked all the way from the provincial capital and witnessed it with their own eyes. They were shocked. However, the crops in Qingchuan village didn't seem to be affected by the drought. They were growing healthily. It's rice. Xiao Lulang corrected him, but the same doubt flashed through his mind. Why did the crops in his village grow so well? Oh, Feng Lin replied and suddenly pointed to the front. Look. Canals. Not bad, your village has even dug a canal. It's really different with Li Zheng around. After old Master Gu stepped down, the village elected a new village chief. Second Uncle Luo was a relative of the clan. It was said that he was almost 5 generations old. However, because they lived close to each other, the 2 families often interacted with each other, so their relationship was still considered close. Luo Lijing was not as cultured as old Master Gu, but he was a practical man. If any of the villagers in the village were in trouble, he would lend a helping hand. But when it came to digging a canal, it wasn't that Xiao Lulang looked down on Luo Lijing, but they were all neighbors. After interacting with each other for so long, Xiao Lulang knew what Luo Lijing knew and did not. He was a relatively conservative village chief. He wouldn't easily carry out large-scale construction. Moreover, the village didn't have the money to carry out large-scale construction. Hey, Lulang! Feng Lin, who was at the side, called out again. Look! Water wheels. Oh my god! Am I seeing things? Your village actually has a water wheel. The number of times Feng Lin had seen a water wheel in his life could be counted on one hand. Water wheels were good things. They could divert water from lower areas to higher areas. It was best used to irrigate the fields. However, water wheels were rare in this kind of small county. Usually, only the wealthier villages had water wheels. On their way back from the provincial capital, they had seen water wheels a few times, However, because of the drought, the village's ponds had run out of water, so the water wheels had become mere decorations. Feng Lin didn't understand. Speaking of which, where did your village get the water? Xiao Liulong's gaze followed the canal all the way to the back mountain of second Uncle Luo's house. He frowned and muttered, "Did they use the waterfall on the mountain? That was no ordinary canal. It spanned half a mountain and required a lot of manpower and resources to dig it. Not only that, but they also needed to be very familiar with the terrain of the mountain." Oh my, Lulang is back. It was Aunt Zhang. Aunt Zhang had just come out of second Uncle Luo's house with a basket of wild fruits in her hands. She felt that her family was in luck. Every time Xiao returned from his exams, the first person he saw was her. Aunt Zhang. Xiao Lulang greeted her. Aunt Zhang. Feng Lin also greeted her with a smile. Aunt Zhang already recognized Chief Feng Lin when he came to the village. She smiled and said, "You're finally back. This time you were gone longer than last time. The provincial capital is very far away." People in the countryside didn't know the date of the exams and the release of the results. They didn't know that Xiao Lulang was actually the first one to return home. They only thought that he had been away for a month longer than last time. Xiao Lulang didn't explain anything and said, "Yes, the provincial capital is farther than the prefectural capital. I walked for half a month longer than last time." "I knew it." Aunt Zhang had an "I'm very smart" look on her face. "Okay, you've been away for so many days. You must be thinking about Jianyang. Hurry back, she's here." Today was Tianxiang Academy's holiday, but the private school wasn't. Gu Xiaoshan went to town to take care of the two babies. Gu Jiao was working at home. Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin entered the house. The first person they saw wasn't Gu Jiao, but a man dressed like a farmer. The two of them were stunned. The man heard movement at the door and turned around. His eyes lit up. "Lulang? This is Scholar Feng, right?" Feng Lin stared blankly. I am. You are Luo Lijing." Xiao Lulang greeted him. Luo Lijing scratched his head and smiled. Feng Lin suddenly realized. "You're the newly appointed Lijing? You're really amazing. You dug the canal and made the water wheel. All the crops in the village have been revived by you." Luo Lijing stared blankly at first, then smiled honestly. "Scholar Feng, you're mistaken. The one who dug the canal wasn't me, and the one who made the water wheel wasn't me." Feng Lin's face was full of surprise. If it wasn't you, then who was it? Xiao Lulang had a vague guess in his heart. He subconsciously looked towards the back door of the central room. Coincidentally, Gu Jiao entered the central room while wiping her hands. When she saw Xiao Lulang, her steps paused. She knew when the provincial examination would end, and when the results would be released. She estimated that Xiao Lulang would only return after the results were released. She didn't expect him to return so soon. Her stunned expression was a little naturally dazed. Xiao Lulang felt his heart tremble uncontrollably. He calmly shifted his gaze away and greeted Luo Lijing. Luo Lijing was confused. Didn't he just greet him? Gu Jiao looked at Xiao Lulang and unconsciously curved her lips. "Why are you back so soon? Why didn't you stay in the provincial capital to play for a few more days?" Xiao Lulang lightly said, "There's nothing fun in the provincial capital." Gu Jiao? Oh. Luo Lijing smiled. "I was just talking about you. Feng Xiaocai asked me if I dug the canal and made the water wheel. Haha, how could I have such ability?" As he spoke, he said to Feng Lin, "It's Jianyang." Ah. Feng Lin was dumbfounded. Gu Jiao opened up the mountain to plant herbs and even dug a fish pond. When the water from the waterfall entered the fish pond, she also dug a canal to the village. The weather was dry and the waterfall on the mountain was much smaller, but it was still enough to irrigate the farmland in the village. Xiao Lulang looked deeply at Gu Jiao. "It can't be? You've only been gone for 2 months, and you even dug a fish pond?" Feng Lin knew about Gu Jiao buying a mountain, but he didn't expect Gu Jiao to be so swift and decisive. Luo Lijing said to Gu Jiao, "That's right. I went to the village's carpenters to make the wooden cart for threshing and transporting the grains that you told us about last time. But they couldn't make it so quickly. They told me to ask you, What kind of wood is better? Gu Jiao thought for a moment and said, red pine, poplar, sandalwood, or basswood are all good. They are hard and not easy to deform. Okay. Then I'll go first. Luo Lijing said and turned to congratulate Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin in advance, wishing them good results in the provincial examination. What's a cart for threshing and transporting the grains? Feng Lin asked curiously. Gu Jiao explained, it's a cart that can separate the grains from the ears of the rice, as well as a cart that can filter out the grains that aren't full enough, leaving only the normal grains. There's such a thing? Feng Lin expressed his doubt. Although he couldn't distinguish wheat fields from rice fields, he still knew how to remove the grains. It was to grab a bundle of rice and smash it on the ground with brute force. Not to mention the trouble of smashing, one might not even be able to remove all the grains. The grains that were not removed had to be carefully plucked by hand. When he was young, he had picked grains for others for half a copper coin a day. As for separating the grains from the good grains, it was usually done by drying the grains under the sun and picking a windy day to raise the grains. The good grains were heavier and would fall to the ground. The grains were lighter and would be blown to the side by the wind. After pounding the rice, they would also use the method of raising the grains to separate the rice from the husks. The grain-raising cart that Gu Jiao asked people to make was the same as the grain-raising cart. It could separate the grains from the bad grains, and could also separate the rice from the husks. The only difference was that the grain-raising cart was more efficient, less laborious, and more thorough. Originally, Luo Lijing didn't believe that there was such a useful thing, but after seeing Gu Jiao dig the canals and make the water wheel for the villagers, Luo Lijing believed in her ability and character without any doubt. In the evening, Gu Yan and his two brothers arrived home. Little Jing Kong's eyelids had been twitching since noon. When he entered the house and saw his bad brother-in-law, he finally understood why his eyelids had been twitching for the whole afternoon. He walked into the house and looked at his bad brother-in-law with a serious face. Well, he didn't lose weight. He didn't need to worry about Jiao Jiao. He pulled Xiao Lulang to the backyard and asked Xiao Lulang to pick the dates from the jujube tree for him. Xiao Lulang looked up at the branches and said, "It's almost September. Where are the dates?" Little Jing Kong stared at the top of Xiao Liulang's head. He had strictly recorded his bad brother-in-law's height before, and he could barely reach the first branch. Now his bad brother-in-law had already surpassed the branch. His bad brother-in-law had grown taller. In fact, in the past 2 months, according to his strict observation, not only had his bad brother-in-law grown taller, brother Gu Yan and brother Xiaoshan had also grown taller. Even Jiao Jiao had grown taller. The only ones in the family who hadn't changed were him and his great-aunt. Jiao Jiao said that it was because he was still young. But Gouwa was even younger than him. Gouwa had grown taller. Little Jing Kong frowned miserably. "What's wrong with you?" Xiao Lulang looked at him and asked. "Sigh nothing. Let's not talk about me." Little Jing Kong sighed like a little adult. He looked up at Xiao Lulang seriously and said, "Let's talk about you. How did you do in the exam? Were the questions difficult? Are you confident? If you don't pass, the family will have to support you for another 3 years." Xiao Lulang didn't expect that he could avoid Dean Li, but not the little monk. What kind of elder's tone was this? You still know that the exam is held once every 3 years. Xiao Lulang was annoyed and amused at the little boy's buzz cut. He passed a red date to him and said, "Here, take it and play with it." Little Jing Kong looked at the shriveled dates in his hand and curled his lips. "Who wants to play with it? Childish." Xiao Liulang's family brought gifts. The old lady's gift was sesame candy and soybean pudding. The old lady was very happy. Gu Jiao confiscated the sesame candy. She could only eat 1 piece of soybean pudding a day. The old lady was not happy. Gu Yan brought an inkstone made of jade. It was round. He liked things that were round, especially those made of jade. Gu Yan said, "Thank you, brother-in-law." Little Jing Kong received a set of 9 rings. Little Jing Kong took it with a proud face. He said, "What? Childish." Then he turned around and hid in the room. He started to open the 9 rings secretly. Gu Xiaoshan received a few pieces of high-quality wood for carving. He didn't lack tools now, but he lacked good wood for carving. "Brother-in-law, what kind of wood is this? I've never seen it before." Gu Xiaoshan weighed a piece of black wood in his hand and asked. Ebony. Xiao Lulang said. Ebony was not from the Zhao kingdom. It was shipped from the Qing kingdom. They were lucky to meet a caravan on the way. They were very satisfied with their gifts. Finally, it was Gu Jiao's turn. Gu Jiao thought that he couldn't give her a writing brush this time. In the end, Xiao Lulang did not give her a writing brush. Instead, he gave her a stack of paper. Gu Jiao was speechless. This was not the coarse paper sold in the market. It was a very expensive water pattern paper. When it was exposed to light, curtain patterns, bamboo patterns, or other patterns would appear. Therefore, it was also called pattern paper. Pattern paper was complicated and expensive. It was not even sold in the prefectural city. It could only be found in the provincial capital. In the Zhao kingdom, giving patterned paper was equivalent to giving flowers. Under the moonlight, a beautiful woman would add fragrance to the flowers. However, Gu Jiao's smile froze on her face. The old lady, whose sesame candy was confiscated, laughed until she was convulsing. There was a kind of romance that Lulang thought was very romantic. Fenglin also brought some things. There were a few pieces of smoked donkey meat and a bottle of Shadaozi wine. The Shadaozi wine was a gift from the shop. Gu Jiao had never drunk ancient wine. It did not seem too strong. She tasted it twice. She did not have any reaction during dinner. When she was washing the dishes, the wine kicked in. Xiao Lulang first sent Fenglin to the village entrance. Then he came back to give little Jing Kong a bath. When he went to the kitchen to find Gu Jiao had already thrown the half-washed dishes into the pot. She was sitting on the doorsill at the back door of the central room. Her back was facing Xiao Lulang. She was motionlessly looking at the starry sky. Xiao Lulang walked over and asked, "What are you looking at?" Gu Jiao slowly turned her head. Her expression was blank and wooden. Her small face was flushed red. Her big eyes were moist and sparkling. Her appearance was different from her usual cold and aloof self. It was as if she had turned into a child in an instant, looking especially innocent. "Looking at the stars," she said. Her voice was soft, with a hint of muddle-headedness. Xiao Lulang took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He said, "Let's go back to the house. It's dark." "I'm not going back." She shook her head and pouted. Well, little Jing Kong was usually like this. She had drunk so much that she looked like she was 3 years old. Gu Jiao continued to look up at the stars. "Lulang," she suddenly said. Digression. Yesterday's prize-winning quiz gave out prizes on the 6th. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115135349. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 117. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet here. It was the first time she called him that. She used to call him husband, but it wasn't an intimate way of calling him husband and wife. It was more like she called him by his official position in the family, because she didn't want to call him by his name. It was the same as when he called Gu Lijing or Luo Lijing. Xiao Lulang sat down beside her. Gu Jiao looked at the endless starry sky and asked, "Do you know why the stars in the sky don't fall down?" Xiao Lulang looked at her and asked, "Why?" Gu Jiao said with a silly smile, "Because they are too far away. They all have their own positions and trajectories." It was the first time Xiao Lulang had heard this, so he asked, "If they are really too far away, why can we see them?" "Because they are big." Gu Jiao raised her hand. She couldn't move her hand because of the alcohol. They look small, but they are all very, very big. Do you know what kind of star that is? Which one? Xiao Luleng asked. That one. Gu Jiao pointed at the star to him. In order to let him see it more clearly, she moved her hand in front of his eyes. This movement made her soft body stick to his shoulder. Xiao Luleng froze. Do you see it? Gu Jiao asked drunkenly. Xiao Luleng responded absent-mindedly. The fragrance of the young girl penetrated his nose and disturbed his thoughts. Gu Sansui, the initiator, didn't know anything about it. She whispered in his ear. Do you know what star that is? I'll only tell you. You can't tell anyone else. It's Venus. You people here call it Chang'e star. Her breath carried small circles of heat that landed on his earlobe. He didn't hear a single word she said. He only felt his ears burning. Gu Sansui pinched his earlobe. Huh? What happened to your ears? So red. Is it hot? As she spoke, she actually pursed her lips and blew on them for him. Xiao Luleng shuddered when her fingertips were slightly cold. He had thought that this was already torturous enough, but who would have thought that she would make it worse? Gu Jiao. Xiao Luleng grabbed her hand and forced her to sit up straight. Stop fooling around. I'm a man. I know. No, you're not a man yet. You're not even 18 yet. You can't be considered a real man. You're still a child. Gu Jiao groaned and waved her hand. Xiao Luleng looked at her dangerously. Do you want me to prove to you that I'm not a man? His words were full of threat, but Gu Sizhui wasn't scared at all. Instead, he stared at him blankly and said seriously, Luleng, you're so handsome. Xiao Luleng took a deep breath and said, You've drunk too much. Let me help you back to your room. Gu Jiao mumbled, I haven't washed the dishes yet. Xiao Luleng said, Let me wash them. Gu Jiao said okay. Xiao Luleng helped Gu Jiao up. With one hand on the crutch and the other on her arm, he helped her back to her room. Lying on the soft bed, she kicked off her shoes and stared at him with wide eyes. Luleng, I really want to go out and have a look. Xiao Luleng had intended to ask her where she wanted to go when she was so drunk, but he realized that the go out she was talking about was probably not going out the door. Where do you want to go? He asked while looking at her. Gu Jiao let out a bitter laugh and lowered her eyes to look at the distant starry sky. I don't know. I've been here for so long, but the farthest place I've been is the hot spring villa. Come here? Was her mouth really muddled? Did she forget that she was born and raised in Qingchuan village? Gu Jiao rested her chin on her hand and asked, What's outside the county? Xiao Luleng thought for a moment and said, The big counties, prefectural cities, and provincial capitals. Also the capital. Gu Jiao laughed mischievously. Then I want to go to the big counties, prefectural cities, and provincial capitals. You don't want to go to the capital? Xiao Luleng stared at her. At this moment, Gu Jiao still had a trace of reason left. She remembered that he didn't want to set foot in the capital. She smiled drunkenly and waved her hand. I don't want to go. What's so good about the capital? It's enough to go to other places. If I go back one day, I can brag about it to people. Xiao Luleng looked at her strangely, waiting for her to explain these strange words. However, she tilted her head and hugged his hand, snoring softly. The feeling of having a hangover was not good. When Gu Jiao woke up, it was already late in the morning. Her head still hurt. The moment she sat up, she felt that her head was going to explode. In her previous life, she wouldn't get drunk even if she drank 1,000 or 10,000 cups. This body was too weak. 1 cup was enough to burn a knife. Gu Jiao endured the headache and opened the small medicine box. At the top of the box was a box of hangover medicine. How did you know I was drunk? Gu Jiao weakly took the medicine and patted the small medicine box. This is the most considerate you've ever been. The small medicine box was as quiet as a chicken. Gu Jiao dressed neatly. After the hangover, her body was more than a little sluggish. She picked up her shoes 3 times and dropped them on the ground twice. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Who is it? Gu Jiao asked. Shivering dog doll. It was Gowa's voice. Then it was Xuanningsiang's voice. Shu, don't disturb Jiaonyang's sleep. Gowa was taken away by Xuanningsiang. She guessed that she overslept and no one made breakfast. Grandma Bai didn't eat Xiao Liulong's dark cuisine, so she called Xue Ningxiang over. After Gu Jiao dressed neatly, she sat on the bed dizzily for a while before she opened the door and walked out. Grandma Bai, Gu Xiaoshan, and Gu Yan sat upright at the table in the central room. When they heard the sound of the door opening, they all looked at her in unison. Great Aunt. Gu Jiao greeted. Her gaze fell on Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshuan's faces. Is the private school and the academy on holiday today? Why didn't the two of you go to school? Where are your brother-in-law and little Jing Kong? The two of them didn't speak. They just looked at her with a serious face. Are you okay? Grandma Bai asked suspiciously. I'm fine. What's wrong? Gu Jiao said. The three of them exchanged glances with each other. Gu Xiaoshan whispered. Usually, those who say they're not drunk, are drunk. Usually those who say they're fine. Gu Yan said expressionlessly. They're all crazy. Grandma Bai and Gu Xiaoshan nodded in unison. It's so early in the morning. Gu Jiao looked at the three of them strangely. Then, she went to the kitchen to find something to eat. Little Jing Kong was squatting under the jujube tree to clean the chicken poop. He didn't see Gu Jiao walking behind him. Gu Jiao went into the kitchen. Xiao Lulang was making hangover soup. It was made with pea sprouts and added a little salt. It was a folk recipe for hangover. Morning, Gu Jiao said. Xiao Lulang looked at her quietly. He added a ladle of water into the pot and said, You're awake. Yes. Gu Jiao rubbed her dizzy temples. She suddenly remembered that she went to see the stars in the middle of washing the dishes last night. She couldn't remember what happened after that. I drank too much yesterday. I didn't do anything strange, did I? She asked casually. Obviously, she had full confidence in her alcohol tolerance. Xiao Lulang looked at her with a complicated expression. In the yard, Jing Kong finished cleaning up the last pile of chicken poop. He carried a bucket to water the pea sprouts that he planted in the vegetable field. He hummed and sang while watering. I have a donkey, I never ride it one day. I rode it to the market on a whim. Gu Jiao's brain exploded. An unbearable memory flashed through her mind. She was standing on a high bed. Xiao Lulang was standing in front of her with a serious face. She had a pair of shoelaces tied to her head. She was holding a small belt in her hand. She twisted it and sang to Xiao Lulang. I'm holding a small leather whip in my hand and I'm proud of it. I don't know why I fell down and was covered in mud. Little brother, I fell down. I need a kiss before I can get up. Sitting like a duck, tilting its head to kill cute. Gu Jiao staggered. She felt as if there were 10,000 arrows in her heart. Little Jing Kong finished watering the pea sprouts and started watering the soybean sprouts. Then he changed the song he was singing. I'm the Mount Tai next door, hold on to the vines of love, listen to me, ow ow ow. In her mind, she lifted Liulong's chin and sang. You're the beautiful Jenny, hold my hand and wander around the capital. Ow 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 ow, don't be afraid of my Lulang, ow 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 ow. Gu Jiao's legs went soft. She supported herself on the stove. She was so drunk, but she still knew how to change the lyrics. Gu Jiao's heart was filled with arrows. Her legs went soft and she supported herself on the stove. That's it, that's it? Gu Jiao waited in fear for little Jing Kong's follow-up song. She waited for a long time, but there was no response. That's it, that's it, that's it. However, little Jing Kong started singing before she could breathe a sigh of relief. He was building up his emotions just now. The next song required him to put in a very sorrowful mood. This was a very difficult task for a 3-year-old child. He held a small bucket in one hand and looked forward solemnly. He raised a small ladle with his other hand. True love is as vast as the grassland, layers upon layers. Wind and rain cannot stop us. There will always be a day when the clouds part, the sun shines on you and me. Gu Jiao's mind was filled with images again. She jumped down from the bed halfway through the song and looked at Xiao Lulang affectionately. Snowflakes fluttering in the north wind, heaven and earth are vast plum blossoms in winter, standing proudly in the snow only for the fragrance of my lover, love my love without any complaints or regrets. The song was not finished yet. Xiao Lulang turned around and left, but she sat on the ground and hugged his thigh. She started to wail and howl. Love even in death. I won't be happy if I don't fully express my feelings. Love even in death. I won't be happy if I don't cry until I smile. The heart of the universe is still there. Gu Jiao was in a bad mood. It was worse than walking 2 streets and only realizing that she forgot to wear her underwear. Xiao Lulang looked at her and said, "The hangover soup is ready." Gu Jiao said awkwardly, No, I'm awake." But it was better not to wake up. Gu Jiao did not know how she got back to her room. She opened the medicine box and rummaged through it. Amnesia pills, amnesia pills. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. "I'm not in." Gu Jiao stuck her head into the medicine box. Xiao Lulang, who saw this scene through the crack in the door, was speechless. Xiao Lulang cleared his throat and said seriously, "I'm going to the county office. The enrollment documents for the Imperial College have been sent out to all the counties. There's a recommendation for each county. I'm going to see if there's any news from the county office." He was the top scorer in the county. If there were no accidents, the recommendation would be his. Gu Jiao pulled her head out of the medicine box. There was still a box of hangover medicine on her forehead. She asked in a daze, "You want to study at the Imperial College? The Imperial College in the capital?" Xiao Lulang said, "Yes, there's only one Imperial College in the country of Zhao." "Why are you suddenly? You want to go to the capital?" Before she could finish her question, she suddenly stopped talking. "Don't you know why this happened? You've been crazy for a whole night. You don't want me to be scared out of my wits?" Gu Jiao said, "I'll go with you." Xiao Lulang said, "Okay." By the time Gu Jiao finished washing up and changed her clothes, no one could tell anything was wrong when she came out of the house. She had regained her calm expression. The old lady, Gu Yan, and Gu Xiaoshan stared at her for a long time, but they could not see anything. Gu Jiao said lightly, "You guys, you're not allowed to skip school. Go get your school bags." "Okay." Gu Xiaoshan nodded. This was his elder sister. His elder sister was back. Gu Yan also nodded and went to the room to get their school bags. When little Jing Kong heard that Jiao Jiao was going to take them to school, he happily walked out with his school bags. "Jiao Jiao." Gu Jiao patted his little head. Last night, there was only one person in the family who was not frightened by Gu Jiao, and that was little Jing Kong. In his eyes, Jiao Jiao did not do anything strange. The way he looked at Jiao Jiao was also the same as usual. Gu Jiao was very gratified. However, it turned out that she was gratified too early. A group of people sat in second Uncle Luo's ox cart. Little Jing Kong sat next to Gu Jiao. The autumn air was refreshing and the cool breeze was blowing. Everyone in the cart tacitly chose to lose their memories. Only little Jing Kong raised his head and looked at Gu Jiao seriously. "Jiao Jiao, the song you sang last night was really nice. I learned all of it." He was clearly touching on her sore spot. Gu Jiao, who was poked inside out, was speechless. Little Jing Kong patted his chest and said, "I'll sing Jiao Jiao every day from now on." Gu Jiao imagined the horrible scene of being dominated by little Jing Kong's magical singing. "Gu Jiao, strike her with lightning." Digression. 3-year-old Gu's karaoke songs. Little Mouse Stove, Tarzan Next Door, A Cut of Plum, Love Even After Death. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115131900. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 118. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang first sent their 3 younger brothers to Tianxiang Academy and the private school. Then the 2 of them went to the Yamen together. The enrollment documents for the Imperial College had been issued, and the name list had been announced. However, it wasn't Xiao Lulang. How could this be? Gu Jiao asked. This. Magistrate Lu had an awkward expression. He awkwardly looked at Xiao Lulang, then looked at Gu Jiao. I don't know if I should say it. There's no harm in saying it, Xiao Lulang said. Magistrate Lu sighed. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that there was something going on behind the scenes. Ever since the county had held the exam, there had never been a student more outstanding than Xiao Lulang. Even though Xiao Lulang had failed in the exam, he was still ranked first in the county. Moreover, he was a student of Tianxiang Academy. Headmaster Li had unilaterally announced that he was a direct disciple. His reputation was clean, and there wasn't a single blemish on it. Magistrate Lu was also worried. The first person he wrote down was Xiao Yulong's name, but who let him? I really can't say. Please let me go. I'm just a lowly county magistrate. I can't afford to offend those nobles. Who did you give the name to? Gu Jiao asked. Magistrate Lu hesitated, then said, a student with the surname Feng. His name is Feng Lin. Gu Jiao and Xiao Yulong's expressions froze. Which Feng Lin? Gu Jiao frowned. The Feng Lin from Tianxiang Academy. Magistrate Lu was shocked. He looked at the 2 of them and said, ah yes. You know him? Gu Jiao turned to Xiao Lulang and asked, how many Feng Lins does your academy have? Only 1. Xiao Lulang said. Gu Jiao mumbled. That's strange. Why is Feng Lin's result higher than yours? No, it's not about the results. Xiao Lulang said to the county magistrate, he's not a local at all. He's from Song County. How could he get a local quota? That's what I said, but... Magistrate Lu was halfway through his sentence when he realized that he had almost spilled the beans. He quickly corrected himself. In short, there's nothing I can do. Scholar Xiao, Lady Xiao, you can go back first. Magistrate Lu really felt sorry for Xiao Lulang. He was such a good seedling. It was a pity that he didn't join a good family. Otherwise, how could his future be estimated? This matter should have nothing to do with Feng Lin. Xiao Lulang explained to Gu Jiao as he walked out. Yes, I know. Gu Jiao nodded her head. The 2 of them weren't people who would lose their minds easily. Perhaps when others heard this news, their first reaction would be to suspect Feng Lin. However, they both knew Feng Lin's character. He wouldn't stab Xiao Lulang in the back. Moreover, he couldn't do it. He didn't have any power or background. This matter was clearly targeted at Xiao Lulang. The other party wanted to use Feng Lin to suppress Xiao Lulang. Their intentions were to be executed. Gu Jiao said, why don't we go to the prefectural city and ask? Oh, don't go. The document was sent from the prefectural city. Magistrate Lu heard that they wanted to appeal, and was very worried that he would lose his official position. He hurriedly chased after them and said, to tell you the truth, that person is a noble from the capital. You won't find him even if you go to the prefectural city. What noble from the capital? Gu Jiao only knew one noble from the capital who had a problem with Xiao Lulang. A marquis. Magistrate Lu said that the person who sent the document accidentally let it slip, and let him know that it was a marquis. However, as for which marquis he really couldn't say it even if he was beaten to death. A marquis? Gu Jiao muttered. As soon as she finished speaking, a carriage stopped in front of the county yamen. Marquis Gu swaggered down and straightened his clothes in high spirits. Then his gaze landed on Gu Jiao and the little cripple Xiao Lulang. Oh, it's you? What a coincidence. Don't tell me you heard about the directorate's enrollment, and came to see if there was a spot for you? Aya, let this marquis guess there are no more spots, right? Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Marquis Gu put his hands on his hips and laughed. I need to talk to him, Gu Jiao said to Xiao Lulang and dragged Marquis Gu into the carriage. Dong. 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 Bang. 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 Ah. 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 After a moment of chaos, Marquis Gu collapsed in the corner of the carriage, his face ashen. Gu Jiao grabbed him by the collar and said coldly, change the spot for me. The moment Magistrate Lu saw Marquis Gu, He hurried back to the yamen and rummaged through the brocade box that Marquis Gu had sent. When he brought the brocade box to the side of the carriage, Marquis Gu had been beaten beyond recognition. He couldn't directly ask Marquis Gu to lift the curtain, so he said respectfully, "Marquis, I'm afraid I can't do what you asked me to do. You're too late. The quota for the directorate has already been decided by someone else. You should take your things back." Marquis Gu had no strength to speak. Gu Jiao paused and looked at Marquis Gu, who had been beaten into a punching bag. She asked, "You didn't do anything about the quota?" Marquis Gu was on his last breath. What did I do? Gu Jiao. I beat up the wrong person. Gu Jiao clapped her hands and got off the carriage with a serious expression. Marquis Gu had originally planned to do something, but it wasn't to prevent Xiao Lulang from going to the directorate. On the contrary, it was to allow him to go. Because only if Xiao Lulang went, could Gu Jiao go with him to the capital. He had Huang Zhong send an order to Magistrate Lu that very night. He also sent a large sum of hush money to have Magistrate Lu leave the quota for him. Just now he had mocked Xiao Lulang for not having a quota, because he was confident that the quota was already in his hands. Although it was to be given to Xiao Lulang, having that girl beg him a few times was also not bad. What he did not expect was that not long after Huang Zhong left, another noble person's order arrived. That Marquis's power was even higher than Marquis Dingan. Magistrate Lu could only let Marquis Dingan down. Of course he would not say it out loud. He only knew that Marquis Ding and had come too late. Marquis Gu felt wronged as he looked at the sky. Why was he beaten again today? On the way back, Gu Jiao did not ask Xiao Lulang why the Marquis of the capital had set his eyes on him. Was he not going to the capital because of that Marquis? If he wanted to say, she did not need to ask. If he did not want to say, asking was pointless. Gu Jiao sent Xiao Lulang to Heavenly Fragrance Academy. Just as she left, Xiao Lulang was stopped by a person. Xiao Lulang indifferently turned around. "It's you again?" The middle-aged man cupped his hands toward Xiao Lulang. With a face full of smiles he said, "Long time no see. Young master still remembers this Lu." Xiao Yulong's expression was cold as he said, "The matter of the quota was done by you?" The middle-aged man smiled. "Young master was not willing to obediently return to the manor with us, so we could only use this method. That young master Feng is young master's friend. Instead of benefiting others, it is better to benefit him. Of course, if young master agrees to return to the manor with me, I can change the quota right now." Xiao Lulang was too lazy to pay attention to him and turned around to leave. The middle-aged man meaningfully said, "Young master, do you really not want to study at the Imperial College? That is a place that all scholars in the world want to go to. Moreover, the registration documents will be submitted to the Imperial Court tomorrow. Young master only has one night to think about it. Once the documents are sent out from the relay station, even the Marquis will not be able to get the documents back." Xiao Liulong's footsteps paused. "I said before, I am not a member of the Xiao family and I do not know you. I will not return to the Xiao family with you. You should give up." The middle-aged man sighed. "Sigh, why bother? Young master, this isn't a wise decision. You don't want to walk on the broad road, but you want to cross the single-plank bridge." Xiao Lulang said, "You can let me go back, but write my name and Feng Lin's name together." "Young master, you must be joking. I spend a lot of effort to obtain this quota. If it was so easy to enter the Imperial College, there would not be so many candidates fighting to get in." Xiao Lulang turned around to look at him. "Isn't there still the provincial examination? Since you are so powerful, why don't you just change my results to first place? I am a top scorer, so I can enter the Imperial College without any recommendation." Top scorers from all over the country were directly admitted to the Imperial College. This was the rule of Zhao country. The middle-aged man smiled. "We cannot interfere in the provincial examination. There is only one quota. I advise young master not to waste this opportunity. I will remind young master one last time. After tomorrow, there will be no turning back. If that is the case, then you cannot interfere in the provincial examination." Xiao Lulang coldly curved his lips and walked away disdainfully. Steward Lu was confused. He touched his chin and sucked in a breath of cold air. Did he miss something? In September, the provincial examination results came out. The relay station rushed to send the newly released second-class roll to all over the country. The county magistrate woke up before the sun rose. He did not wait at the yamen, but went directly to the relay station. The moment he received the second-class roll, his hands began to tremble. He could not wait to open it. On the rightmost column, there were 5 words written in large letters. Top scorer Xiao Lulang. The county magistrate cried on the spot. He sat on the ground and hugged his head. Woo woo woo. Woo woo woo. The constable at the side was frightened. County magistrate, you. What happened to you? The county magistrate's eyes were brimming with tears. I am so happy. The county magistrate under my rule has finally produced a top scorer. First place in the provincial examination was not so easy to obtain. There were many top scorers in the provincial capital. After all, the families and teachers of the provincial capital's candidates were there. The reason why so many people would travel thousands of miles to study at Tianxiang Academy was because Tianxiang Academy had the best teachers outside of the provincial capital. There were a total of 50 top scorers on the second-class roll. 10 of them were from Tianxiang Academy. This was a frightening ratio. However, these 10 top scorers were not all local scholars. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye were also top scorers. Feng Lin was ranked 17th. He was a scholar from Song County. Lin Qingye was ranked 45th. He was a scholar from the provincial capital. The county magistrate counted. There was only Xiao Lulang among the top scorers. 1 was 1. He was a top scorer. 1 was worth 10. He would not accept any rebuttals. The constable scratched his head and said, Actually, Scholar Xiao. No, I should call him top scorers now. Top scorer Xiao was registered in our county because he married Miss Gu. Otherwise, he would still be a foreigner. The county magistrate. The county magistrate. I don't care. His household register is here. He is the first top scorer in my term. The county magistrate personally went to Xiao Lulang to report the good news. The entire village knew that Xiao Lulang had become a top scorer. Did my Dashun pass? Zhou Shi excitedly ran over to Gu Jiao's house to ask the county magistrate. The county magistrate looked at her indifferently. Gu Dashuan's name is not there. How can it not be? Zhou Shi did not believe him. Xiao Lulang passed. How can my Dashun not pass? The county magistrate said. I don't like what you're saying. Is Xiao Lulang worse than your Dashun? In Zhou Shi's impression, Gu Dashun had always been the best. Xiao Lulang was lame and poor. Even if he went to the academy, he was always the last place. If this kind of person could pass, why couldn't Dashun pass? Did you make a mistake? Zhou Shi turned her head and saw Xiao Lulang coming back from the academy. She quickly went forward and said, Lulang, tell auntie that Dashun also passed. Xiao Lulang said to Zhou Shi, I didn't see Gu Dashun during the provincial examination. A bolt from the blue. The family sold the dowry of the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, and collected a total of 20 taels of silver. They asked Gu Changhai to bring Gu Dashun to the provincial examination. Who knew that someone would cheat them of all the money on the way? Zhou Shi fainted on the spot, and was carried home by the villagers. Little Jing Kong came out of the private school, and heard from Gu Xiaoshan that his bad brother-in-law got the first place. He expressed his disbelief and insisted that someone else must have made a mistake. It's true. Gu Xiaoshan scratched his head. The whole academy is in an uproar. Little Jing Kong insisted that seeing was believing. Gu Xiaoshan had to bring him and Gu Yan to the county magistrate's office. He was very small and the list was very high. He looked up for a long time and then said, I want to see the official document from the magistrate's office. The constables were dumbfounded. Little kid, you know about the official document? After knowing that he was Xiao Liulang's younger brother, the magistrate took out the official document and showed it to him. Little Jing Kong read it carefully 3 times. After confirming that it was not forged and that there was no mistake, he nodded with a serious face. He did get the first place. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896426/115102102. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 119. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. Bad brother-in-law's grades were so bad. It was not easy for him to get first place. Little Jinkong decided to praise his bad brother-in-law when he got back. However, when he got home, he realized that there was no need for him to praise his good brother-in-law. There were many people in the house. They were all here to congratulate his bad brother-in-law. See, he was right. His bad brother-in-law's grades were indeed bad. Therefore, everyone was surprised when he got first place. Little Jinkong, who knew nothing about the value of the top scorer, decided to take back his praise. After everyone in the house left, Little Jinkong found Xiao Lulang, who was packing up in the west room. Xiao Lulang looked at the little guy with his hands behind his back, acting like a little adult. He asked, "Do you have something to say to me?" "Yes." Little Jinkong nodded seriously. He looked like a teacher with his hands behind his back. Even his tone was very similar. "You've heard praises all day, so I won't say more. Don't be arrogant just because you've heard too many praises. You have to be humble and study harder. Otherwise, you'll be laughed at if you don't get first place next time." Xiao Lulang looked at him. "Who's laughing at you?" Little Jinkong snorted. "I'm not that lame. If you don't get first place, you can't support your family. I'm not an adult yet." Xiao Lulang smiled faintly. "Didn't you say that it's okay if I don't do well?" Little Clear Sky was at a loss for words. Xiao Lulang chuckled. "Did you remember?" "No, you remembered wrongly. I didn't say that." Little Jinkong decisively exercised his privilege as a child. Reneging on a debt. This was the knowledge that he had learned in elementary school, taught to him by his deskmate who had been his deskmate for the entire day. Then Little Jinkong quickly changed his position and looked for Gu Jiao to be her little tail. During dinner, Gu Jiao talked about Xiao Lulang going to the Imperial College. "Aren't you going?" the old lady asked. Gu Jiao said seriously, "Why should I go? I'm not studying. I'm not curious about Beijing, not at all." Everyone looked at her in disbelief. Who was the one crying and singing that she wanted to go to the capital that night? Haha. Gu Jiao was inseparable from the family. It was okay for 1 or 2 days. Xue Ningxiang could withstand it. If it was too long, she would die. In the end, the family unanimously decided to go to the capital together. But can a single travel permit bring our entire family? Gu Jiao didn't want to miss out on anyone. "One is not enough," Xiao Lulang said. "But we still have Feng Lin. With his help, we should be able to enter the capital." Steward Lu thought that his plan was perfect, but he didn't know that he had been played by Xiao Lulang. If he didn't scheme against Xiao Lulang wouldn't have gotten what he wanted. The Imperial College opened at the end of October, and it was already September. They had to hurry up and get on the road. Gu Jiao left the matter of opening the mountain to Luo Lijing. Although Luo Lijing didn't study much, he could still read. Moreover, his son had passed the Imperial College examination, so he could understand the drawings and plans left by Gu Jiao. There wasn't anything valuable in the house. They only had Liu Long's books. Xue Ningxiang said that she would help take care of them. "Oh right, Guowa's second uncle is also in Beijing. If you go there, help me meet him. I'll bring something to him." "Okay." Gu Jiao agreed. Xiao Lulang went to Tianxiang Academy and the private school to apply for the withdrawal of his 3 younger brothers. Guyan didn't like to go to school, so he was happy to be able to withdraw. Gu Xiaoshan went to the academy to learn how to carve characters on wood. In fact, he could learn from little Jing Kong. As for little Jing Kong, with his level, he couldn't find a suitable class in the private school. If he wanted to skip a grade, he would be in the class that specialized in the Imperial College examination. The Imperial College had a preliminary class, and there were many young geniuses in the preliminary class. Xiao Lulang felt that little Jing Kong was more suitable. Xiao Lulang also went to greet Dean Li. Dean Li had mixed feelings. He hoped that Xiao Lulang could go to Beijing for the Imperial College examination every day, but when he really went, he suddenly felt very reluctant. He sighed. Forget it. No matter where you go, you'll always be my disciple. Xiao Lulang wanted to say something but stopped. I'm afraid you won't be able to become my disciple for the rest of your life. Speaking of which, I should have had a younger brother in Beijing. Dean Li suddenly said. Unfortunately, he died young. I didn't even have the chance to see him. Xiao Lulang glanced at him indifferently. He walked out of Zhongheng Hall and sneezed loudly. Gu Jiao took little Jing Kong to the temple. Little Jing Kong said goodbye to the abbot, his senior brothers and his friends. He didn't see his master. However, little Jing Kong was used to it. His master was rarely in the temple all year round. Are you going on a long trip too? Little monk Jing Fan asked. For little monks sat on the steps of the temple, each holding a string of vegetarian meatballs made by Gu Jiao. Little Jing Kong ate a mouthful of Chinese characters and sighed. Yes, my bad brother-in-law is admitted to the Imperial College. Our whole family is going to go to school with him. But why did you say so? Jing Fan smiled and said, because we're going on a long trip too. The abbot is going to take us to the Dharma conference. Oh. Little Jing Kong was actually a little tempted. However, this might be the price of going down the mountain. Since he had Jiao Jiao, he was destined to give up some things. In his heart, Jiao Jiao was still the most important thing. Gu Jiao brought a lot of delicious food. In addition to vegetarian meatballs, there was also vegetarian roast duck, vegetarian dongpa pig knuckle, and 2 boxes of osmanthus cake bought from Li Ji. The 4 little monks had a pleasant afternoon. Gu Jiao also went to the medical center to say goodbye to the second boss. However, shopkeeper Wang told her that something happened to the Hu family, and he had already returned to the capital. She might be able to see him in the capital. Gu Jiao went to Dean Li's house and gave some mountain products and hawthorn cakes to old Madame Li. Old Madame Li was still in a daze, but her complexion was much better. The servant said that when old Madame Li woke up, she said that she had a little grandson and was very happy. At the hot spring villa, Marquis Gu rested for a few days and finally recovered from the wounds on his face and body. He went to Madame Yao's courtyard to find her. Madame Yao was ordering the servants to pack their luggage. Marquis Gu was stunned. Madam, what are you doing? Don't you live in the villa? Are you leaving? That's right, I'm leaving. Madame Yao nodded. Marquis Gu panicked and stepped forward to grab Madame Yao's hand. I was wrong. I will never bully that girl again. I will not drive a wedge between them and divorce. You're angry. Don't go. This time it was Madame Yao's turn to be stunned. Marquis, what are you saying? Who are you bullying? Jiao Jiao? You went to find them and threatened them to divorce? Marquis Gu panicked. Marquis. Madame Yao painfully pulled her hand back. Marquis Gu quickly denied it and said, I did not. I am saying that I plan to. Madame Yao was shocked and angry. You still plan to? Marquis Gu shook his head like a rattle drum. Small ripples appeared on his cheeks. I won't. I won't go now. I will listen to everything you say. Don't go. Madame Yao calmed her emotions and said to Marquis Gu, if I don't go, how can I return to the capital? Marquis Gu was surprised. You're finally willing to go back? You've thought it through? But what about Yen and Cough and Jiao Jiao? Madame Yao smiled but did not say anything. On the side, Nurse Feng happily said, Marquis, you probably don't know yet. The son-in-law has become a top scorer and is going to study at the Imperial College. The young master and young miss are going to the capital with him. Marquis Gu was stunned. Did he hear wrongly? That little cripple had become a top scorer? He had just scolded him for being useless. And he had become a top scorer in front of him? What was the meaning of this? Was she here to slap him in the face? Marquis Gu pursed his lips. He was just a top scorer from a small provincial capital. How great was that? There were 20 to 30 top scorers like him in the whole of Zhao country. He was probably the worst of them all. However, this solved his urgent problem. If they still did not return to the capital, Jinyu would have to go through her hairpin ceremony at the villa. Gu Jinyu also heard the news that Madame Yao was packing her luggage. She happily came over to help Madame Yao pack her things. Unexpectedly, she accidentally heard the reason why Madame Yao agreed to return to the capital. It was because Gu Yan and Gu Jiao were going to the capital. Gu Jinyu felt like her heart had been pierced by something. Mother said that she treated her like her own. But in her heart, the person she loved the most was her own flesh and blood. Alright. Marquis Gu suddenly remembered that the son of the Gu family was also taking the provincial examination this year. What was that child's name again? Gu Shunzi? Gu Shunfeng? Gu Dasun? Did Gu Dasun pass the examination? Marquis Gu asked. Madame Yao personally went to the yamen to look at the list. She remembered the names on the list clearly. There was no candidate with the surname Gu. Nurse Feng disdainfully sneered. The son-in-law is talking about that family's son, right? I heard that he also went to the provincial examination. Unfortunately, he didn't even pass the provincial examination. He's far worse than our son-in-law. There's a saying that dragons give birth to dragons, phoenixes give birth to phoenixes, and mice give birth to babies that can dig holes. Other than the deceased Gu Sanlang and his wife, no one else in that family is good, and they still want to pass the provincial examination? Bah. Maybe in your next life. These words were a bit harsh. She shouldn't lose her composure in front of her master. However, that family was indeed too harsh on Gu Jiao. So even the mild-mannered Madame Yao didn't refute Nurse Feng's words. Although Marquis Gu was a bit unhappy that Nurse Feng praised the little cripple so highly, he agreed with the rest of her words. That family was indeed hateful. As for Gu Jinyu, Marquis Gu never thought of her as a member of the old Gu family, so he didn't feel that she was being scolded. Nurse Feng originally didn't mean to scold Gu Jinyu. She was only referring to those from the old Gu family. However, the speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Gu Jinyu's face flushed red. It was even more embarrassing than being slapped by Gu Jiao on the street. In the end, she didn't go in to help Madame Yao count the luggage. Instead, she turned around with red eyes and silently returned to her room. Nurse. Madame Yao suddenly spoke from inside the room. In the future, it's better not to say such things. Be careful that Jinyu doesn't hear it. That child is sensitive. I'm afraid that she will think too much. Yes, madam. Nurse Feng bowed in response. Madame Yao looked at the 3 sets of clothes in the box. They were all personally made by her. After reuniting with Jiao Jiao, she was anxious to make up for Jiao Jiao and neglected Jinyu. These 3 sets of clothes were all made by her for Jinyu. Madame Yao knew that her daughter would be uncomfortable with them, so she didn't ask her to travel with her. Instead, she arranged for the Marquis's household's best coachman and carriage for her daughter. Marquis Gu didn't have any objections to this. After all, Gu Yan's body was weak. A good carriage would greatly reduce the bumpiness. Gu Jinyu sat in the bumpy carriage. She probably felt that she didn't have any weight in this family. They only gave her 3 sets of clothes, but gave Gu Jiao a carriage. Gu Jinyu looked out the window, her face full of grievance. On a sunny morning, Gu Jiao, Xiao Lulang, and the others set foot on the road to the capital. The weather was still beautiful. After a long journey of more than a month, the group arrived at the capital. Feng Lin did not travel with them. He wanted to make a trip home and took the water route. Feng Lin's travel permit was in Xiao Liulang's hands. Great Aunt and Little Jing Kong were registered on his travel permit. He was a supervisor of the Imperial College and could enter the capital with the admission document. Gu Jiao and Gu Xiaoshan were registered on Xiao Liulang's travel permit. This kind of school district travel permit was different from ordinary travel permits. One could bring along family members, but only 2 at most. As for Gu Yan and the coachman, they were originally from the capital. It was still early when they entered the capital. They first went to the nearest relay station to rest and feed the horses. At the same time, they also inquired about the residences in the capital. On the way, Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang had discussed it. They would try to live near the Imperial College, so that it would be convenient for him to attend school. They had used some silver to open the mountain. Now they only had 1,000 taels left. 1,000 taels could buy a few houses in the town, but it was not enough in the capital. The best way was to rent. They were lucky that the relay station happened to have a broker. A broker, also known as a guarantor, was similar to the intermediary in Gu Jiao's previous life. They were registered in the Yamen and could buy and sell servants, property, and animals reasonably. The guarantor's surname was Zhang. He was a young man in his early 30s. When Zhang Bao heard that they were going to the Imperial College to attend school, he immediately cupped his hands and showed a respectful expression. So you are a supervisor of the Imperial College. Then I will help you. Don't worry. Whichever area you like, I will sell it to you at the lowest price. Gu Jiao was not familiar with the capital. Xiao Lulang told her the approximate location of the Imperial College. It was at the northeast corner of the intersection of Chang an Avenue and Xuanwu Avenue. It was closer to Chang an Avenue, but Chang an Avenue was a commercial street and was very congested. So in fact both streets were similar. Zhang Bao was surprised. Little brother, have you been to the capital before? Are you very familiar with the capital? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115098502. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 120. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao glanced at Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang's expression did not change as he said, I heard the dean of our academy mention it. Gu Jiao said to Zhang Bao, my husband's dean lived in the capital for more than 10 years. Zhang Bao suddenly understood. Ah, so that's how it is. Gu Jiao said, are there any houses on these 2 streets? Ah, there are. Zhang Bao looked at the 2 of them. Their clothes were very simple. Although one of them was a supervisor of the Imperial College, he was a cripple. The other had an extraordinary temperament, but his face was damaged. These 2 didn't have much money, right? Zhang Bao smiled and said, do you want a house with a single entrance or a house with 2 entrances? Gu Jiao thought for a moment and said, we need at least 5 houses. Then it'll have to be 2 or 3 houses. Zhang Bao smiled. Houses with 2 or 3 houses are not cheap. A house with 2 houses costs at least 10 taels a month, and a house with 3 houses costs 20 taels. In the countryside, 10 taels was enough to feed a large family for a year or 2. However, this was the capital, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Gu Jiao thought about it and understood. Gu Jiao suggested going out to take a look. No matter how Zhang Bao looked at them, they didn't look like they could afford it. He was worried that he would make a wasted trip. Although they were supervisors of the Imperial College, was there a shortage of supervisors in the capital? The capital was a place where a falling plaque could kill 3 officials. Zhang Bao really didn't think much of Xiao Lulang. However, he hadn't opened for business for several days. Since he had nothing to do, he decided to take the 2 of them. Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang looked at more than 10 houses. There were 2 and 3 houses, but they were not satisfied with any of them. The 2 of them returned to the relay station. Zhang Bao followed them. Do you want to decide today? If it's any later, The students from all over the country who are coming to the capital for the exam will arrive. Even if we want to rent it, we won't be able to. Moreover, the price won't be this high. Gu Jiao said. It's too small and too secluded. Although it was said to be near the Imperial College, in reality, it was not the residences on the two streets, but the most remote alleys at the end of the street. Not only was it dark and damp, it was also very close to very noisy shops. If it was not a smithy, then it was a carpentry shop. There was even a coffin shop. How could he study in peace? I only have these houses at this price. If you want something better, you'll have to pay this price. Zhang Bao gestured. 30 taels. Gu Jiao asked. A house, Zhang Bao said. The first entry cost 30 taels of silver, not to mention the second and third entry. It seemed that regardless of the dynasty, the school district housing was extremely expensive. Alas. Zhang Bao sighed and said, all right, I'll just tell you the truth. The houses in the capital are priced at this price. The good locations and good houses have already been bought by the nobles in the capital. Those nobles don't lack money, so they won't rent out their houses. Even if you change 100 guarantors, you'll only be able to rent those houses just now. Gu Jiao asked, didn't you say that there are good houses, just that the price is higher? Zhang Bao smiled and said, there's a house with 3 entrances, 100 taels a month. Gu Jiao frowned. What house costs 100 taels? Zhang Bao gestured. It's diagonally opposite the Imperial College, walk 500 steps. The house where the young Marquis of Zhaodu and the young Chancellor once lived. Xiao Liulong's mouth twitched. When did he live there? Zhang Bao slammed the table and said, he lived there. If you live there, you'll be able to bask in his auspicious aura and pass every exam. Xiao Liulang said indifferently, he didn't live there. Zhang Bao rolled up his sleeves. How do you know he didn't live there? You're not him. This price is high, at most 30 taels. Xiao Liulang said indifferently. Of course, Zhang Bao knew that his price was high. In the past, he could buy a house with 30 taels, but wasn't the Imperial College about to reopen? The area was expensive again. He was sure that the lowest price was 50 taels. If this family wasn't willing, he would find someone else. He didn't believe that he couldn't rent out a house near the Imperial College. Jiao Jiao, what are you doing? Little Jing Kong woke up from his afternoon nap. He rubbed his eyes and came to the lobby of the courier station to look for Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao carried him over and rubbed his little head. His hair had grown out a little. He wasn't bald anymore, but had a buzz cut. We're looking for a place to stay. Gu Jiao said. Did you sleep well? Yes, where are we going to stay? Little Jing Kong leaned in Gu Jiao's arms and enjoyed her rubbing his little head. I don't know yet. Gu Jiao shook her head. Little Jing Kong looked at the drawings on the table and asked, what are these? Zhang Bao smiled and said, these are house deeds. He was worried that the child would break his things, so he quickly put away the house deeds. Little Jing Kong said, I have this too. The 3 of them were stunned. Little Jing Kong ran back to the carriage and took out a small box from his small box. He took the small box back to the lobby and put it on the wooden table in front of the 3 of them. The table was a little high, so he couldn't reach it and open it. Let me do it. Gu Jiao reached out her hand. Gu Jiao had seen a few small boxes like this when she was packing up little Jing Kong's things at home, but she had never opened them. Okay, Jiao Jiao, do it. Little Jing Kong nodded decisively. Gu Jiao opened the small box. There were a few thumb-sized seals and a few documents inside. They were not ordinary documents, but house deeds. The 3 of them were very surprised. Let me see, Xiao Liulang said. Okay. Gu Jiao took out the house deeds and handed them to Xiao Liulang. Zhang Bao also came over to take a look. It was fine if he didn't take a look, but when he did, he was almost scared out of his wits. The houses on Chang'an Avenue, Xuanwu Avenue, and even Vermilion Bird Avenue. Did he go all the way to the Imperial Palace? Is this a real house deed? Gu Jiao asked Xiao Liulang. It's real, Xiao Liulang said. Jing Kong's name is written on the house deed, so it's his house deed. Gu Jiao looked at little Jing Kong in her arms. How did you get these? Little Jing Kong looked at the house deeds in Xiao Liulong's hands, counted with his fingers and said, Jiao Jiao, are you talking about these papers? Master gave them to me. He gives me one every year on my birthday. I have celebrated 3 birthdays in total, so there are 3 of them. Gu Jiao, Xiao Lulang, Zhang Bao. Gu Jiao suddenly couldn't look at the big box of junk in little Jing Kong's eyes. The locations of the 3 houses were better than the previous one. Zhang Bao was just bragging that the house that cost 100 taels of silver was diagonally opposite the Imperial College. It was 500 steps away from the Imperial College, but in reality, it was more than 1,000 steps away. The house that little Jing Kong's master gave him was much closer to the Imperial College. After walking out of the alley, the Imperial College was just around the corner. Zhang Bao had lived for more than 30 years, but this was the first time he made a mistake. He was dressed like a country bumpkin and bought 3 big houses at once. The house on Vermilion Bird Avenue was difficult to buy, as almost all the people who lived there were relatives of the emperor. The 2 houses on Xuanwu Avenue and Chang an avenue were priceless. Where did this group of people come from? Little Jing Kong didn't understand what a house deed was. Gu Jiao explained to him that it was a very precious thing, and it was proof that he owned a house. He decisively put all the house deeds in front of Gu Jiao. Give them all to Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong's home was wherever there was a Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao had already accepted his zither, so she couldn't accept his house deed anymore. In the end, Gu Jiao proposed to rent the house in Little Jing Kong for 30 taels of silver a month. Little Jing Kong said seriously, I don't want Jiao Jiao to pay me. Gu Jiao patted his little head and said, Your brother-in-law will pay you. Little Jing Kong thought seriously, if my brother-in-law pays me, I'll pay Jiao Jiao. There's nothing wrong with that. Both parties asked Zhang Bao to be the guarantor and signed a house rental contract. This was Little Jing Kong's first time doing business, so he took this matter seriously. Not only did he sign the contract, but he also put a stamp on it. The premium was 30% of the first month's rent, which was 9 taels of silver. This was a lifetime guarantee, and he had to come to the site to terminate the contract after the lease ended. We'll pay half of the premium, Zhang Bao said with a smile. Do you have any money? Xiao Lulang looked at Little Jing Kong calmly. Little Jing Kong was in a dilemma. He didn't have any money. This was a story that was even sadder than sad. But soon he thought of a solution. I'll deduct it from your first month's rent. Xiao Lulang was annoyed and amused at the same time. The little monk was quite smart in business. It was a 2-sectioned house with a front yard. There were some bamboos planted in the yard. There were 2 rooms in the first row, a study room, and a kitchen. After passing through the hall, there was a backyard. There was an osmanthus tree in the backyard, and behind the osmanthus tree were 3 rooms. Just like when they were in the village, Little Jing Kong and Xiao Lulang shared a room, and the rest of them each had their own room. The house wasn't very big, but it had good lighting. Most importantly, it was not only close to the Imperial College, but also to several private schools. This undoubtedly solved the problem of Gu Yan and the rest of them going to school. Hearing that they still had to go to school, Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan were a little dumbfounded. Didn't we drop out of school? The 2 asked in unison. Gu Jiao opened a suitcase and said, We did drop out in the county town, but we have to continue after coming to the capital. You are still young. What are you going to do if you don't go to school? The 2's faces were ashen. They were happy all the way, but were they happy for nothing? Also, what do you mean by we are still young? You don't seem to be old either. The furniture in the house was complete, but it had accumulated a lot of dust due to the lack of people living in it for a long time. The few of them simply cleaned up the few rooms and moved in first. The courtyard and the kitchen would be slowly cleaned up later. The pots and pans would also be bought tomorrow morning. Dinner was steamed buns bought from outside, and they ate them with the pickled vegetables brought by Gu Jiao. The capital was colder than the county town. Gu Jiao could already feel the coldness of the winter moon on an October night. This was not like the countryside, where they could go to the mountains to chop firewood. They had to go to the market to buy firewood and charcoal. Everyone was exhausted from the bumpy journey. When they returned to their rooms, they fell asleep. Little Jing Kong was lying on his back next to Xiao Lulang, snoring evenly. Chapter 121. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Gu Jiao woke up before dawn. After washing up, she went to feed the chickens in Little Jing Kong. The chicks had grown into big chickens and would occasionally crow. If no one woke up, they would stop crowing. There was a small market nearby. It was in a different direction from the Imperial College, so it was faster to walk there. Gu Jiao carried her basket and went to the small market. Steamed buns, fresh and delicious steamed buns, a hawker shouted. Gu Jiao walked over and asked, "How much is one steamed bun?" The hawker saw the birthmark on her face, but he didn't show any strange expression. He was indeed from the capital and didn't find it strange. The hawker smiled and said, "One big meat steamed bun is 3 copper coins, 2 brown sugar steamed buns are 3 copper coins. How many do you want?" The steamed buns were very big, and one was enough to fill him up. Gu Jiao took out the food box from the small basket and said, 8 meat steamed buns and 4 sugar steamed buns. They ate the meat steamed buns and the sugar steamed buns in Little Jing Kong. She didn't know if 4 steamed buns could fill him up. The little guy's appetite was a bit shocking. "Okay, that's a total of 30 copper coins. I'll give you a steamed bun." The hawker packed the steamed buns and steamed buns for Gu Jiao. "Thank you." Gu Jiao paid and went to buy pots, bowls, ladles, basins, and other kitchen utensils. Then she bought firewood. The firewood in the capital was not cheap. A bundle of firewood cost 10 copper coins. According to their firewood burning speed, they could burn for about 2 to 3 days. Gu Jiao asked for 2 bundles of firewood and asked how much charcoal was sold. The hawker selling firewood said, "Do you want black charcoal or silver charcoal? Black charcoal is 5 copper coins per caddy and silver charcoal is 20 copper coins per caddy." "Silver charcoal is so expensive?" The hawker selling firewood laughed and said, "Silver charcoal is very useful." This was the truth. Black charcoal was not only not resistant to burning, but it was also very smoky. In comparison, silver charcoal was more resistant to burning and didn't smoke. In the end, Gu Jiao bought 100 caddy of silver charcoal for 17 copper coins per caddy. The peddler drove the mule cart and personally delivered the firewood and silver charcoal to the door. Xiao Lulang had already woken up and cleaned the kitchen. He was now cleaning the backyard. His movements were very light and did not wake anyone up. "Morning," Gu Jiao greeted. "Morning." Xiao Lulang nodded. Gu Jiao directly asked the peddler to move the firewood and silver charcoal to the kitchen. After the peddler left, Gu Jiao walked over and took the broom from Xiao Lulang's hand. "I'll do it. You go and tidy up the box." This time, Gu Jiao, Old Madam, Gu Yan, and Gu Xiaoshan didn't have much luggage. On the contrary, Xiao Lulang and Little Jing Kong had several big suitcases full of luggage. Xiao Lulang mainly brought books, while Little Jing Kong brought back things from the temple. Of course, there were also his 7 chicks. "Okay." Xiao Lulang turned around and went to the study. After a while, Gu Jiao brought 2 steaming big meat buns to him. "You eat first. I'll cook some millet porridge." "Have you eaten?" Xiao Lulang stopped her. "Not yet." Gu Jiao shook her head. She wanted to say that she could eat while she was cooking the porridge. Unexpectedly, Xiao Lulang pushed the plate forward and said, "Then let's eat together." Gu Jiao thought for a while and said, "Okay." Since there were more people in the family, the two hadn't eaten alone for a long time. The last time was at the inn in town, but that was more than half a year ago. The two sat face to face, as if they had returned to the early days. Gu Jiao laughed. "What are you laughing at?" Xiao Lulang asked. Gu Jiao held the big meat bun in her hand and said, "I'm laughing at the first time I asked you to eat. Did you think that I poisoned it and didn't dare to eat it?" "I didn't," Xiao Lulang flatly denied. Gu Jiao suddenly leaned over and stared at his handsome face. "Now you're not afraid that I poisoned it? Is it because you trust me too much?" While Gu Jiao was feeling complacent, she saw Xiao Lulang looking at the bun in his hand with a complicated expression. Then he took Gu Jiao's bun and gave his bun to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was speechless. After the two finished eating breakfast, the rest of the family was still asleep. Xiao Lulang had to report to the Imperial College. Gu Jiao estimated that they would sleep until noon, so she sent Xiao Lulang to the Imperial College. The Imperial College officially started school in late October. Nowadays, there were many supervisors coming to report. Some were from the capital, while others, like Xiao Lulang, had come from other places. The regular supervisors of the Imperial College didn't need to pay tuition. All expenses were paid by the Imperial Court, including the supervisors' dormitories and meals. These were all paid for by the Imperial Court. Xiao Lulang could go back today after reporting to the Academic Affairs Office. Of course, if he wanted, he could stay at the Imperial College to study. The Imperial College had the largest library in the entire Zhao Kingdom. Otherwise, it wouldn't have become the holy land that all scholars dreamed of. Gu Jiao was waiting for him outside the Imperial College. Gu Jiao felt that the heavy traffic in front of her was very refreshing. So this was the capital. It was really different from the county town. The roads were much wider, and several carriages would pass by from time to time. Most of the girls on the road were wearing veils. There were very few girls like Gu Jiao who showed their faces in public. Gu Jiao was engrossed in watching when the crowd suddenly surged in one direction. Everyone stood on both sides of the street and looked in one direction. Gu Jiao wasn't standing far from the street. She was pushed to the side, and someone stepped on her foot. I'm sorry. The culprit hurriedly apologized to Gu Jiao. It was a boy dressed as a scholar, but whether it was her appearance or her deliberately lowered voice, it was clear that she was a girl. His features were delicate and pretty. I'm really sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. The girl dressed as a boy cupped her hands and bowed to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao didn't take it to heart. She moved back to give way. However, the people behind her didn't give her a chance to move. She was stuck in the middle of the crowd and couldn't move forward or backward. The little scholar kept trying to squeeze forward, but she was too weak and couldn't get to the front. She gave up resisting and wiped the sweat from her forehead. She asked Gu Jiao, "Miss, what happened to your face?" Gu Jiao calmly said, "Birthmark." The little scholar hurriedly covered her mouth. "I thought it was rouge. I am sorry." Gu Jiao didn't care about her unintentional offense. She felt apologetic. It was bad enough that she bumped into her, but she also stepped on her foot and said the wrong words that poked her sore spot. Sigh. There wasn't a day that she didn't offend people. The little scholar looked at Gu Jiao and said, "Miss, you're not from the capital, right? Your accent doesn't sound like it." Gu Jiao replied, "Yes." The little scholar continued, "Did you also come here to see the Crown Prince consort?" Gu Jiao asked strangely, "What consort?" The little scholar's almond eyes widened. "The Crown Prince consort? You came here so early because you heard that the Crown Prince consort came back from praying and was going to pass by the directorate, right?" Gu Jiao shook her head. "I don't know the Crown Prince consort. I don't want to see her." The little scholar took a cold breath. Who came to see her because they know her? Can common people like us know the Crown Prince consort? Don't we all want to see her from afar because we heard of her and admire her? Gu Jiao said seriously, "I have never heard of her and don't admire her." "Are you from the Zhao Kingdom? You have never heard of the Crown Prince consort?" The little scholar's voice was unusually loud and caused the people in the surroundings to look at them. Everyone looked at Gu Jiao in disbelief. Clearly, like the little scholar, they found it strange that there was someone in the world who didn't know the Crown Prince consort of the Zhao Kingdom. As they spoke, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, "The Crown Prince consort is here! The Crown Prince consort is here!" Following his exchange, the crowd became restless. Hundreds of imperial guards came on iron hooves. They formed an enormous formation and surrounded the Crown Prince consort's carriage. The common people didn't even see how many wheels the carriage had before the imperial guards escorted the Crown Prince consort's ceremonial procession down the street. The crowd dispersed. The little scholar looked at the disappearing figures of the imperial guards and stomped his feet in anger. I wasn't looking. Was it easy for me to come out? What a waste of waking up so early." Leaving the dense crowd, Gu Jiao sighed in relief. She really wasn't used to being so close to strangers. The little scholar saw that Gu Jiao wasn't upset or angry at all and asked curiously, "You really didn't come to see the crown prince consort?" Gu Jiao said calmly, "I said I wasn't." The little scholar asked, "Why?" Gu Jiao said, "I also said that." The little scholar said, "You really haven't heard of her?" Gu Jiao looked speechlessly at him. The crown prince consort was the person that the little scholar admired the most. He would not allow anyone in the world to not hear of her. The little scholar explained to Gu Jiao seriously, "Do you know who the crown prince consort is? She is the most outstanding woman in the entire Zhao kingdom. There is no man in the world that doesn't like her, no woman that doesn't envy her. Do you know the great scholar of the Zhuang family, Zhuang Xianji? He was once the crown prince consort's teacher. Do you know who went to school with him? The young Marquis of Zhaodu." Gu Jiao looked calmly at him. The little scholar exploded. "No way. Don't tell me you also don't know who the young Marquis of Zhaodu is." The young Marquis. The young chancellor. Gu Jiao thought for a moment. "Oh, I've heard of him. It was a long time ago. Young Master Qin got a painting from somewhere and said it was the young Marquis calligraphy, but Xiao Lulang said it wasn't." This was the only time she had heard of the young Marquis of Zhaodu. The little scholar slapped his forehead. Oh my God, did you jump out of a rock? How can you not know the young Marquis and the crown prince consort? One of them was the number one genius of Zhao Kingdom, and the other was the number one genius of Zhao Kingdom. They were childhood sweethearts and even had an engagement. After the young Marquis died, the crown prince consort kept her chastity for him for 3 years. This year she accepted the emperor's bestowment of marriage and married the crown prince. You actually haven't heard of such a legendary event? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115065314. HTML. This genius remembers the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com. Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.